Where's Sotek? Sotek is not with us. At least, not yet. He's already messaged me to say he's on his way, so expect him very soon. Hopefully you can all hear me out there as I lean back and say, I'm rather looking forward to this episode, so if for any reason Sotek doesn't turn up, I may just bloody well do it anyway, because I kinda love Morathi, and it would be lovely to talk about her a little more. As you are aware, we have already had part one. Part one of Morathi went out on Sotek's channels about 2 weeks ago. Was it 2 weeks ago? Yeah, it was about 2 weeks ago. And we had a whale of a time because, well, we did something that was considered to be relatively controversial by many who were watching. And that's that we pitched Morathi as arguably one of the most important, if not the most important character in all of Warhammer Fantasy, which is quite a bold claim to make. And that's largely because she's a character whom, unlike most, has seen pretty much every part of what happened to the Warhammer world, right from the coming of the old ones through to the cataclysm that ends the world with the end times. So yeah, in a rare circumstance, she's one of those few who've seen it all. But she's also one who has been fighting against the inevitable destruction of the world right from the very beginning. And she took what can be almost certainly described as a very controversial set of choices as to her way of resolving it, largely because everything else she attempted up to that point had been impotent and had completely failed. And as we discussed in the last stream, Morathi went from being this Cassandra-like seer who nobody believed, and transformed herself into an incredibly powerful witch who was capable of hopefully making a difference come the cataclysm. And then attached herself to the god that was Inarian, who was possessed by one god and wielded the blade of another god, and intended to use him to halt the great incursion of chaos that was underway with the cataclysm. But he refused to listen to her, went in a different direction, and ultimately died, leaving her distraught because she was fully aware of what was to come after. Even though the vortex had been put in place by Kalidor and his pals, the loss of magic from the world meant that the greatest weapon against the Chaos Gods, which was arguably chaos itself, had been taken away from them, meaning that they were now in a world that was going to head towards a slow decline and inevitable destruction. In the end, the vortex, as far as she was concerned, was a great error. And that leaves us with what's going to be today's stream, where we're going to be diving into the post-Vortex world, the world in which she heads over to Nagaroth with the Dark Elves to be, because they're not really Dark Elves yet, and sets her plans in motion to try and effectively stop the world from blowing up, which ultimately, as we know, are going to fail. It's a bit of an up and downy tale, because much as we discussed in our last stream, much as we discussed in our last stream, Morathi is a character who has been written by boys for boys, and a lot of her agency, for all it's hinted at and discussed in various places, is often stripped away so that she can be a vehicle for a big king to do big king things. And she's often a foil for other characters rather than necessarily being a character in her own right, even though the things that she says and the decisions that she makes are so massively consequential. As we discussed in the previous stream, she is responsible for establishing many of the Dark Elf cults. That she ran the pleasure cults, all of the dark underworld cults for a long time, and she also did a lot of other things in turn, from the point of view of she started dark magic. She pretty much put that into place along with Hecate. She has a big long tail, and we're going to be diving into that today. But before we do, and before the arrival of Sotek, I'll pick up a couple of the super chats that have come in before we go, so that Sotek doesn't need to worry about them when we pop in. First, Biofoot. Hi, Biofoot. I'm in the PNW visiting friends. Oh, so if you don't hear from me for a bit, just know that I blame the fishermen, as do I, and really love the show. Thanks, Biofoot. super, super appreciated. The Sagemeister, after watching the Ross Andy stream, I have a craving for a 40k Beat Lorebeard spin-off, maybe with Arbitrator Ian. You could call it Ian Watson. No, wait. It's strange. After the Ian Watson stream, after the Ross Watson stream, I'll admit I also saw something similar. Lindsay's comment that Ross was effectively me in American form, but a bit different. You know, he's bald. I've still got hair hiding under here somewhere, maybe. Yep, there's still hair hiding under there somewhere. And I'm currently a little bit thinner than Ross, but only a little. But he did everything over on the 40k roleplay games, much like I did over in the Warhammer games, and he'd been doing that for ages. He has a wealth of really interesting chat he can bring to bear, and he was with us for Inside the Rookery last night as well, and we had a great chat about developing roleplay games. If you haven't caught that one, do actually recommend after this stream head over to Inside the Rookery, which is Rookery Publications channel on YouTube. The video is just sitting there. Ross and I are discussing developing games like developing Warhammer and 40k and similar, so do head over into there. Hiya, we're just going through some of the super chats, so do recommend going take a look at that. Also, I'm going to warn you, Sotek, I'm wearing shit earphones. Everyone might notice there's no crack earphones.
Oh no, you've been downgraded.
They are dead. They have died. I have ruined them by overuse. So at the moment, I'm using these really shitty headphones, so I'm not going to hear you very well today. So you have been warned.
A 40k Lorebeards spinoff.
Yeah, what an idea, huh? Let's put that down. So nice idea there, Singemeister. Moving down, we are now on to, because I was taking them in live. Warrington Crescent. Given we know, I can't speak now. You've arrived. You're meant to speak.
Yeah. Okay. So this actually is quite interesting. So, given that, according to a recent update, the ancient city of Quintex is confirmed to be an ancient lizardman city. There is presumably spawning pools, and Cainite rite of bathing in blood has Morathi likely experimented bathing in their spawning pools. What freaky magic could that ensue? So, for those unaware, there was an update to Total War Warhammer by the CA guys, and in it, one of the devs expanded the ancient city of Quintex with lizardman fluff, and it got approved by GW. So it's the only thing we have on the ancient city of Quintex. So it appears that it's an ancient lizardman city, which makes sense. I mean, it's right there.
It does. the name sounds vaguely lizardman.
Yeah. So we don't know anything else about it. We don't know anything else about like who all has been there. Obviously, Total War puts Morathi there, which is exciting because this could theoretically be something that occurred. Would Morathi experiment with spawning pools? Yes. Would the results be scary? Horrifying.
Oh yeah.
But that would kind of be a story for you all to explore in your own time. Or if you want to get really, really nitty gritty with it, you could potentially see it as how Morathi ends up doing the stuff she does in Age of Sigmar, where she creates a whole new species of elves on her own. Which, I don't know, maybe there's something there. But I don't know. Oh, goodness.
Are you going to catch up on
Yes. I was... Did Morathi feel like she was special, unique, or a freak even because of her visions? Or was she just someone that was simply not blinded by compliance or indifference?
So Morathi is a unique character in that she comes from a species that is in and of itself inherently magical. So being able to perceive some form of futures is not exactly that freakish, but hers kind of was, because she was seeing things that nobody else was. She wasn't using simple magic, which, as we know, is potentially influenced by the ruinous powers to be. She was getting her visions from another source, and that other source meant that she was seeing stuff that nobody else was seeing, and that's what made her unique or special or freakish, if you prefer. She saw something that nobody else saw, that nobody else was capable of perceiving, and that gave her a unique perspective. Of that there's no doubt, and nobody believed her. And she found that exceedingly frustrating. We know that. That's pretty much clear in the text. She found it enormously frustrating, and it was something she attempted to resolve for a long time and failed. We're probably talking centuries here before she eventually turned to a different source and started effectively trying to prepare for the great cataclysm that was to come, to prepare herself and any who would believe her, no one, for what was going to be coming. So she made pacts of all kinds with powers from beyond, but much like many elves, she had the almost towering arrogance to believe that she was somehow definitely going to be able to survive this with her soul intact. But that's just the Morathi way.
Yeah, and it probably would have been heavily distressing to have other future gifted individuals, whether they were wizards or like people that
or
treated
gods.
with the other gods, like Lilith, for instance, likely disagreeing with her, which would have sucked. It would have sucked a lot.
Morai Hag not seeing it. The goddess of fate herself, or at least not saying it. But when you've got goddesses and gods who claim to be able to perceive these things, claiming they don't happen, and little Morathi is left by herself saying, yes, they are, it's going to give Morathi a great well of contempt for these individuals. So you can see where a lot of her contempt for the gods and why she thinks she should become one becomes a core component of her later character. It's very much set up right at the very beginning when the gods themselves are denying the truths that she is certain are there. I mean, we've seen this in movies all the time. Someone who's certain that something's to come and they're perceived to be mad, insane, wrong, broken. And that's how the witch seer was perceived by others, as someone who was quite simply wrong and ostracized because
bitter
of it.
brew.
It is. It is indeed.
Aberash, not to excuse the terrible things she's done, but I can empathize with the fact that she was ridiculed and people disbelieved her. Makes a person very bitter. Yep.
Absolutely. And I think that's something that we should say at the beginning of the stream, because Morathi is a terrible, 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 terrible person. Yep. She makes terrible, horrible choices. She does things that are, in many respects, absolutely unacceptable. But she believes she's doing it for the right reasons. She absolutely believes in her purpose. She absolutely believes that she's right. Our most compelling bad guys are bad guys who you can empathize with and understand. Bad guys who are just mustache twirling weirdos who just do evil things because they're evil, ha 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 ha, as they cackle into the night, aren't very interesting, aren't very believable, and don't make very good bad guys. Morathi is almost the opposite of all of those things. Everything she's doing, she does for a reason, but the choices she makes are horrendous. But a lot of those choices, when you see each one in isolation, you go, oh, I get why she did that. Oh, I get why she did that. I get why she did that. And then you look at the end of it and you're like, holy shit, what a mess. What an absolute shit show.
Yep. It's unfortunately just not much of a it's not much of a balm when you're on the receiving side of it. Biofoot, I'm up in the PNW.
We've already done Biofoots. Oh. We can move on. Yep, I did that right at the beginning of the stream.
Sensemeister, after
too.
Cool. Sean Schultz. What caused the salon to awaken?
Your rival, I presume.
Yeah. So I can't tell if that's a joke about me or if that's a joke or if it's like an actual lore question.
Even if it isn't, it is.
so I'm just going to cover my bases really fast. Of that, I was already awake. I was just taking care of a little family matter real quick. We're having everything happens at once in life, which is just bleh. But it's fine. It's dealt with. The day's moved on. But and if you're asking the lore thing, my favorite thing about the salon will always be that they were all kind of in that waking sleep form until Mazda Mundi got pissed off so many times by humans of all things. They made him so mad in such a short amount of time that he finally just woke to full anger and shook off the malaise of chaos because he was just pissed, which is very understandable. It's a very relatable aspect of the salon. Niastra, good afternoon, boys. I hope you're both doing okay now. Much love. Yeah, I think we're doing all right.
Thanks. And yeah, doing good.
Skylywag, how well traveled is Morathi? Seems like most of her story takes place on Ulthuan or Nagaroth. She is better traveled than the story indicates, but she does spend a lot of Morathi is kind of more often portrayed as kind of like the influence that causes the various multitudinous hands to go out across the world, reaching and grabbing for things. So she's often in a central point organizing a truly obscene scale of moving parts. So she often needs to be in a place where she could do that. And we're going to talk today a lot about the Tower of Grond and why it's so important, because it's not just a place. It's a very significant place. So
and it very much speaks to who she is and what her entire raison d'etre is as well.
Yeah, so you're not wrong. Like, Malekith is probably actually more well-traveled than she is.
Malekith traveled the world and is noted as doing so multiple times. Morathi is noted for staying at home and ruling multiple times and being tried for being a traitor and various other joyous
multiple
things.
times, yeah.
But loosely, she's known for that. But it's also worth noting that she is, and as much as this is going to sound like a bollocks excuse for saying this, it's the truth. She is a Warhammer special character, which means she has fought all over the world. Whenever they have a special character, the general assumption of these special characters from the army list is that they can turn up in armies anywhere in the Warhammer world and be used. You want to play the Empire army versus Morathi? Sure, let's go with it. You want to play Wood Elves against Morathi? Sure, let's go with it. And whenever they speak about a Dark Elf army and they decide the Dark Elf army this week is going to be attacking Lizardmen, they make a story. And typically, it will include one of their special characters. So Morathi, yes, she's attacked Lizardmen. And Morathi, yes, she's attacked Wood Elves. Morathi, yes, she has. And in fact, you can say this for probably every faction in the world. She has probably been everywhere, but her base of operations is Grond.
Yep. And y'all let me know if that audio level is a bit better compared to Andy's. Turn myself down a little bit. Grey Lotus, what were the races' relations to the old ones if known? They're not really known that well. The old ones are kept very... When you read it, you'll hit a lot of points, to be very frank. Well, you'll go, okay, realistically, they would have been bumping into them. Like, there would have been, like, certain characters that would have had to have run into them unless they're very, very good at hiding, which they might have been. They might have been, like, at that weird level where they weren't really physical and they're more like partly etheric entities or something. So they might have been hard to perceive, but it's the written stuff says nobody really ever saw them except for like the first generation Slaanesh, which implies something. But then you have other records that talk about them being seen,
flying across the sky and doing shit.
There are records of them fighting in battles, so like they must have been doing something. But it's inconsistent.
Yeah, so this is an unknown question. I agree with everything Sotek says. My only additional part is that the answer here is probably never going to be known because it's part of the mystery of the old ones. What were they doing? Why were they doing it? What was going on? The core relationship that the old ones tend to have with almost everyone in the old world is one of two things. Well, Warhammer world, pardon me. On one side, it is they went to war with them and they used the Lizardmen to do it, so thus no direct relation. Or on the other side, they uplift them as scientist sorcerers, and they often use other species to do that for them too. They are, broadly speaking, the unknowable observer that sit on the outside watching as their servants do their work. So the relations to all of them are weird, uncertain, and unknowable, and will probably always be there.
Yeah, if you want more details, go check out our old ones Lorebeard stream where we went over all of them and like we talk about a lot of the weird inconsistencies there. Chaotic Monkey, my wild theory is that AOS Morathi Kane sent her past self the visions of the Cataclysm because she knows it paves the way to her godhood.
I don't think that's a terrible idea, although the Kane connection to it makes it weaker. Because Kane presumably would have been in it from the get-go as well. And would almost certainly have been pushing certain things. But then you could argue Kane was. Kane provided her with the Cauldron of Blood. Kane provided her an enormous amount of support that turned into an entire species, entire race, pardon me, of elves that were pretty much worshipping Kane primarily. So you could argue this happened. It wouldn't be a terrible choice to make, Chaotic Monkey.
Yeah, it's I like to keep a little bit of separation between my AOS cake and my Warhammer Fantasy cookie, just a
Me
little
too.
bit. But if you wanted them to be like a flush, continuous setting, this could work really well.
Yeah. Yeah, it works really well, particularly given that we know that time in the Aether is not as simple as we understand time to be in the real mortal realm. So yeah, totally makes sense. You could go with
Charles
that.
CK, ask viewers. Oh god, yeah, I have to do my research into this because I've been seeing this around. I don't even understand what I'm looking at yet.
What is it?
So YouTube's introduced some bizarre new feature that called restricted mode, where like if it's on by default, and when it's on by default, it doesn't show you most of the things you want to see on YouTube. Instead, it shows you what they want you to see, but it mostly results in you seeing old content, not new content. It's really weird, and there's already a lot of discussion going on about how it's potentially going to hurt a lot of people, creators and stuff. So that's fun, but I will be looking into that today, actually, and if I can find like good evidence and everything, then I'll post up stuff on all the Discords about how to turn it off for people that want to.
Cool. So might be worth being aware of that out there, because we might vanish from your notifications.
And that's why you should join our Discords, because that's not a thing on Discord.
Yeah, absolutely. Do join our Discords and our patrons as well, because I've mentioned every single one on Patreon is totally free over on Patreon. And I think I'm only 6 members away from 1,500 folks over there.
Woo!
So if we can get over that during this stream, that would rock. Because it's
free.
just been nice to see Patreon build up. It's been nice.
Yep. Plus, there's a bunch of articles on there that you can just like take time to like chill out and read, and they're super fun. Highly recommend those.
Yeah, 6 members away from 1,500 over on Patreon.
Bloombull972, tried on Discord, trying here. Can you announce a Bretonia special episode? Please say yes, even if it's a lie.
Yes!
It's my birthday. Yeah, sure. Yeah, absolutely. And so I assume that's Saurus Lost in Bretonia, in which case, happy birthday. I hope you're having a great birthday. And yeah, absolutely. Yep.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. Emerson Fire. How did Morathi and Be'lakor interact pre/during the Cataclysms? I remember a previous Lorebeards, one of you, probably Andy, suggested he could have or might have been an elf.
Could be anything.
Morathi and him have an untold story. So I'm going to cut in and say, should they have interacted? Yes. Did they? Okay. Be'lakor should have been one of the most important figures in the Cataclysm. There is nothing written about what the hell he was doing during the Cataclysm, other than he was vaguely making a demon empire and kind of basically says, basically it's like he was off busy, like, jerking himself and having a great time. And that's it.
So the answer to this is absolutely, demonstrably, and categorically yes. We could not push this one stronger. There is an untold story. Is Be'lakor the first demon prince an elf? Fuck knows. He could be anything. The name Be'lakor, of course, is particularly elven, but the elvish language is particularly demonic. Because they both draw from the same core, the same source language. So there's absolutely no reason to say that Be'lakor definitely would be an elf, unless for some bizarre reason Be'lakor is his original name. Then you could argue, maybe, yeah, sure.
Which would be very funny if it was.
It would be very funny. So would him and Morathi have an untold story? Almost certainly, yes, because he predates the Cataclysm, almost certainly. And during the Cataclysm, he rises to become a god. That definitely happens. And during the Cataclysm, he's fucked over, which also by the end of it definitely happens. So there's a whole story there that's untold.
Yep. Dumbo, love the streams. You're both an inspiration and font of knowledge. Well, thank you so much. Any tips for role-playing dwarfs? Spelt right this time. Nicely done.
Well
Good
done.
job. And elves,
spelt right.
to make them feel a bit more unique than just short/pointy humans. Cheers.
I'm going to go with first. Thank you so much. That's very generous.
Yeah, very generous. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Enormously appreciated. I'm going to not wax lyrical in this because this is not a dwarf stream. So I'm just going to focus on one thing. And that's make your dwarves very literal, non-metaphorical, and direct. And make that a cultural norm, and make it that they find the opposite difficult to understand. And by that, I would take as a baseline, think of people who are neurodivergent. and how neurodivergent people have got a different baseline to everybody else as to how they perceive the world. People who are autistic, and depending on where they are on the spectrum, will respond to social cues and the world around them in different ways. The dwarfs aren't human. They would be considered by human standards to be neurodivergent by some significant measure. So use that thinking as a base, go do a bit of research into different types of psychology, and then go, okay, right, my dwarves are going to have as a baseline a different perspective to where humans are. So all dwarves start here, and their neurodivergence means different things to them around a different baseline. So my baseline for most dwarves is that they are exceedingly literal. They are exceedingly grounded in the real world. They perceive the truth in all things. So language, words mean something to them. When you say something is big, it's big. When you use a metaphor that suggests something else that is big means that it's big, they think you're talking to the something else, not the thing that's big, because words mean something to them. Their runes directly mean what they mean, and they don't go deep into metaphor. And using that as a baseline means that you can have your standard gruff dwarf or whatever, moving through the world, making assumptions and choices that are completely different to the elves, to the humans, and everybody else, because they perceive the words that everyone's saying in a different way, and they have to really learn hard how to understand other people at their level, in the same way that people that are neurodivergent in our world, humans that are neurodivergent, have to learn how to mask, how to pretend to be something that is different to them to fit in with everyone else. They're an entire world of neurodivergent people, in the same way that elves are an entire world of neurodivergent people by human standards. But for them, it's the norm, and it's humans that are neurodivergent and weird.
And what I would add is don't be afraid to play around with the physicality. Like, allow your players to feel different than humans. With like messing around with rules a little bit, like with dwarves, they should have they're so much more broad than people think they are, and their hands are huge, but they're also really able to work with very delicate, tiny things. Like when you would see their hands, they're going to be so much bigger than human hands. You think, oh, they can't possibly like pick up and tinker with really tiny things. But they're way better at it than humans. And it's eerie in kind of a weird way. You know, think about the way of like, if you're dealing with especially non-imperial dwarfs, like dwarfs that come from a Kadak or traditional dwarf background, how if you think about like, if you're a person and you go into like a claustrophobic space, or you go into a cave where you can really feel the anxiety of it pressing down on you, dwarfs are the opposite, where when they're out in the open, a lot of the times they feel like they're going to, like, they know they won't, but there's that anxiety of like, it's so open and they're exposed at an angle they're not used to being exposed on, and they feel like they could just fall up into the sky. Like that level of pressure they're used to having on their senses isn't there, and it can make them kind of stressed out and a little weird. And they might prefer, like, you know, when the party's like, oh, we could camp out under the stars, they're like, no, we should camp in like something where there's something over my head because I'm uncomfortable. But just play around with things. You know, they tend to have like a much more strong sense of touch and hearing and sight than humans do. Mm-hmm. And with elves, we're talking a lot about elves today, but we've waxed a lot about this on prior streams as well. For dwarves, I'd say go check out the Slayer stream for a lot of great details. And for elves, we've done a lot of elf streams. Yeah, so just pick your poison. But thank you very much.
Appreciate it, Dumbo.
Charles CK, do we think Morathi knew AOS or something like it was going to happen, or just as far as the original End of the World?
I'm pretty certain that what lies beyond is not really within her ken, because if it was, she might not have been panicking so hard, because she survives it. Because she is panicking hard. Having said that, though, come the end times, which, by the way, her writing the end times fucking sucks. But come the end times,
we'll talk about that today.
We're going to be talking about that today. Come the end times, and her, you know what, Malekith, you're an idiot. We should become gods. You can already sense that even though Morathi before that may not have known about Age of Sigmar, the fucking writers did, and they were fully aware of what was coming next, and they were already setting up at least some of the stories that they were going to be diving into later. So whilst Morathi definitely didn't beforehand, it would be fair to say that come the end times, she had a pretty damn strong inkling that she needed to be in a different position if she wanted to survive.
Yeah, I would Andy does a really good job demonstrating this if you watch the LAWhammer show. I can't remember I think the episode is literally called The Storm of Shemtek.
The
That
storm.
if you check it out, it talks about how there's like a point where basically everything in the Warhammer world that has the capability of seeing the future realizes there's a moment where it stops. And to put it bluntly, that's how the end times very much treats it. And although I don't like the way they handled a lot of the way the characters react to it, I do think it's correct that a lot of seers and such would start to panic because they suddenly realize that, like, it's like driving in a car and suddenly you see the road up ahead just ends and there's just like a pit and there's no way to swerve and you're heading towards it and you're like, oh my God. And that's it. That's all you have time to do.
In some respects, I'd say it's worse than that because it's not even a pit, because a pit is something. A pit is something you can immediately imagine what's going to occur, which is you're going to fall into a pit, and pits suck. It's much more. It's just dark. Or it's bright, or it's something that is indescribable. It's something that you just can't quite understand what it means, and you look at it and you're like, what the fuck? It's what Shemtek in my game, in LAWhammer, who is a big celestial wizard, he called it the storm of Shemtek, because he looks forward into the future and all he can see is his ear crackling everywhere. He can't see anything beyond it, and it makes no sense to him. So yeah, that's a fun episode. Storm of Shemtek is also a standalone, so you can watch Storm of Shemtek pretty much without watching anything else. Yeah, you just drop it
and watch it with no explanation.
Yeah. With no explanation, because it's we do a lot of Tales episodes, which are just standalone episodes that tell us an individual story that the PCs become aware of. And Storm of Shemtek is a story that the PCs become aware of. So it's basically one episode of crazy bullshit that gets thrown at them. Good times.
All right, we're going to do this one, and then we're going to get well, okay, we're almost caught up. We'll get caught up.
We've already done sort of an intro already when you were arriving, so all we really need to do is just dive in. So we could probably do another 2 or 3 super chats, and then we'll just dive straight into the Morathi chat.
Lord Inquisitor Seru, I have 5 questions. Forget the odd number of CAD, trying to do it as shots of 10. Well, thank you very much for the support. First question, what happened to the Bretonnian male magic-capable children when they were taken? So... This is mostly kept as a mystery, but there is
one story.
There's one story that just answers it, which is The Court Beneath by Phil Kelly, which was released as part of the Hammer and Bolter lore series, which was a really cool thing GW used to do back in the day, where it was basically kind of like a magazine that was pure lore. That was it. It didn't have tabletop rules, didn't have painting. It was just lore. And you can find all of them on the Black Library website as purchasable ebooks or PDFs or what basically. And what's essentially revealed is that they're all taken, and the lady basically makes them into like her elite honor guard is probably the best way to describe them. And they're just really, really scary, magically inclined warriors that ride on like kelpies. They're pretty cool.
They're an end time unit that never happened. We should have had Ladriel coming to the world, and the lady herself appearing before her people, the Bretonnians, come the end times, and leading them into the great war against chaos. And along with them should have been the children's, the scions of all the royal bloodlines of Bretonnia for the last 1,500 years or whatever, coming back. So knights from different ages, those from the past, those from very recent times, young men who have been spirited away, everything from 1,000 years ago to just 5 years ago, coming back, wielding magics, preparing for the end times, as the elves and their version of Ranadandra and the gods coming back manifest in Bretonnia. That should have been a thing. It would have been fucking awesome. It would have been something that spoke to the stories that had been told by the Bretonnians, and would have also grounded the Bretonnians as not stupid patsies to the elves, which is how some various versions had kind of pitched them, undermining Bretonnia and making Bretonnia just a big buffer zone for the wood elves, and it looks a bit daft. It would have given them a unique story and a unique contribution to the end times army lists, I suppose. Didn't occur though.
No, that's a damn shame. Amarat, the Shades need more love. Love the idea of a Druki subfaction, exiled and abstaining from politics, but feared as the brutal elves of the mountains. Yeah, the Shades are very cool.
Love the Shades. I had a lot of them in my army.
Yeah, they're awesome. They're really effective, really nasty, and you are correct that it would have been cool to see more done with them. They're kind of just sort of there a lot of the time. Exiled One. Cheers, lads. I'm glad to see Morathi getting a part 2. We'll watch this when I'm later off. Once I'm off from work. We'll have a great day
Hello,
at work.
Exiled One of the future. I'm delighted you're watching later.
Yeah, indeed. And then Kolbo, Morathi is interacted with Luther Harkin, Kairos Fate Weaver, Ariel, not to mention her myriad pacts with demons. She's probably met Be'lakor. Very true.
Yeah, yes. Yeah, I agree.
Okay, we got 3 more. I'll grab real fast. Theo Barona, regarding your comment about twirling villains being not compelling, a number of people are bemoaning they're falling out of fashion. Are they a minority? What is the source of their discontent? So I think there's a difference between a compelling vision of villain in the sense of a story versus a villain that's just fun. And fulfills a point or fulfills a role, but their story is not compelling per se, because there's no reason behind it.
Yeah, bad guys being bad guys is great. And one of the things that are falling out of fashion is bad guys actually being bad.
Yeah, which is different.
They're doing the Maleficent thing, where, you know, the bad guy from something else comes back and you go, but Maleficent was actually nice. Or they're doing, you know, what happened with 101 Dalmatians. And they're taking the core Cruella de Vil character and turning her into someone who's like a punk rock awesome character. That's, I think, very different to taking a bad guy and going, yeah, they're a bad guy and they're the worst. Morathi's the worst. I can't in any way say she's not. She is the worst. But you also look at her and go, I know why she's the worst. And if anything, that makes it even worse. Because you can see how she got to where she got to. And I don't think, in many respects, she's not a mustache twirling bad guy. In some respects, she is. But in more respects, Malekith is, because that's the way she made him. These are proper justified characters, and it just feels better than just ones turning up and being evil and claiming power simply because we need someone to be claiming evil and claiming power for the good guys to kill.
Yeah, and I to this last thing a little say about it is that I think a lot of the bemoaning, because I have been on said team, is that it's great for villains to have a reason that they became the way they are, because it gives an easy way to like relate to them. The problem is that a lot of modern media isn't willing to put pull the trigger on letting them still be evil. Like, it's the problem is that it's not that they have a backstory that like explains why the way they are. It's a lot of the time that they're trying to be like, well, they're not really evil. In fact, it was the old good guys who were bad, and they're just viewed as evil because of the way that story was told. But in reality, they're kind of good. That's what I think a lot of people look at and go, oh, okay, that's all right.
I mean, there is nothing worse than a bad guy that feels like they're nothing more than a vehicle for the good guy. So a classic example being the twirling mustachioed bad guy captures the good guy but doesn't kill him. Because suddenly he's got a reason not to. He wants to tell him his plan, or, you know, put him over a cage of rats or whatever it is he decides to do. Put a laser beam between his legs and then just walk away.
Going, so I gotta
exactly.
like.
But the hero has to survive. So they come up with a shitty reason that means that the bad guy isn't a bad guy in that one moment and doesn't do what bad guys should do, which is just, hey, here's my nemesis dead. I can now carry on with my plan. Just to bring up that one from the Scallywag. Oh no, Mr. Bond, I expect you to die as I walk away.
As I leave the room. I'm sure it'll work itself out.
Just bullshit. And these are bad guys who are not very well conceived often.
Yeah. But in Warhammer, I mean, we do have our fair share of villains that are just evil assholes.
And that's fine. Chaos is evil. The Dark Elves are in a different place, so it's good to have Morathi be in a different place and explain why the Dark Elves, in many respects, are what they are.
Sovereign, Astrogod, Zul Ahul. What's up, guys? Do the executioners listen to Morathi at all, or anyone else other than Hellebrand, and stay in the city or Harkonnen? They're not stupid. They will listen to the appropriate person that is above them politically. They're not idiots, because that's how you get killed.
So we're going to be discussing to a degree the loss of the Cult of Cain from Morathi to Hellebrand. And there is more than one position where it makes it quite clear that this is by Morathi's design, because Hellebrand has to be more powerful for a variety of reasons. But equally, it means that she loses power and a great deal of face. So there is a question here, which is, do they listen to her? And the answer is yes and no. It depends on the circumstances. What's happening? What are the politics of the moment? Where are they? Who are they paying attention to? She is, no matter what you say about her, the leader of Grond, the mother of the Witch King, one of the most powerful Dark Elves in existence. She is extraordinary. So saying no to her is always a choice.
Not a smart one, but it is a choice.
Yeah, it's a choice.
I'm sure there has been someone over the thousands of years that went, oh, I could get brownie points with Helibron right now. And then they got exploded by dark magic. 21CS, greetings, fellas. Question: Dark elves have hag sorceresses. Kislev have hag witches. Is there a connection besides the word hag meaning old magic woman?
No.
Yeah, that's
it. No. There's not. I know. I named the hag sorcerer, the hag witches. I know why they're called hag witches. Nothing to do with dark elves. Now, could someone later add it? Yeah, sure.
Yeah, we're still waiting on that one.
No. Until someone does it, no.
Lord Inquisitor Seru, male Bretonnian mages again. If they were spirited out of Bretonia before they were snatched up, would they still be snatched up from somewhere, say, like the Empire?
No.
No, yeah. If they get out, they're out.
Yeah, they're out. And this happens in multiple places in the lore. And you've got to remember, the snatching up is not infallible. It doesn't catch everything. It just catches most.
Yeah, and it's usually a physical mortal thing that comes to get them, like a damsel or the Fey Enchantress herself.
Fey Enchantress herself, yeah.
Which are avoidable.
Yep. And some run away and get away when they're being pursued. There is good stories there, effectively.
Yep. Acting Zebra, thank you for the background to the most productive 3 hours of housework in my week. What do they farm in Nagaroth? So this is something that is often alluded to but never detailed. Of that, there are great farms. There are great producers of food in Nagaroth that are run by all of the slaves and everything. What specifically they're growing, I don't know.
Yeah, every once in a while, a writer comes along who goes, shouldn't we have farms? And they go, often this, and there are farms somewhere with slaves on them, oh yeah. And they move on without too much thought. And that's about all that happens. The background for Nagaroth makes it hard because it's the land of chill and there's a permafrost. But beyond that, because of the Dark Elves' influence there for the last so many thousand years, it's also absolutely soaked with dar, meaning that everything is corrupted in some fashion or another. It is not the best cropland you've ever seen by any stretch, but Dark Elves are, and let's not run away from this part, elves. And elves are masters of magic and masters of manipulating the world around them in ways that you might not expect. So could this occur? Yes. Does it occur? The answer is yes, because they have to be fed. They don't just eat cold ones. They don't just eat manticores that happen to have flown by. They have large populations that require a great deal of food. So they have farms. It's mentioned in multiple places.
Come from somewhere.
Okay, exactly. They have to have them. So I did this for multiple versions of my roleplay game, and I justified what they did with various slaves and the sort of crops that they had, but it's never really hit any major book. I was going to write about it once. I even wrote a piece about it about 20 years ago because I was commissioned to write an elf book, and I'd already written about a third of the dark elf part, and I'd written this material up, but Games Workshop moved the roleplay game from being in-house with Black Library to out-of-house as a licensed game, and I was working directly for Games Workshop, and they no longer had the roleplay game. I was like, so what do I do with all this? And they're like, we don't need it anymore. And I was like, oh well, that's a thing that will never get used. So I used it in my own games. But yeah, there are farms. They are not well detailed in the actual printed lore.
No. Brock 6000. Does Morathi have similar disdain for all gods, similar to Nagash, or still view some of them with respect or reverence?
That is an interesting question that would require you to get into Morathi's head. She has significant ties to Cain. And I mean significant. She has significant ties to Hecate. She has significant ties to authority. In fact, you could argue that all of the underworld gods are, to some degree, tied to Morathi. She effectively put their cults in place and changed the nature of their worship. So that definitely puts her in a position of power. She has power. That doesn't mean power over them. She just has power. Now, does that equal disdain? She certainly disdains the Chaos gods. She disdains pretty much all of the heavenly gods, the Kadai. She did just no to them. And you can even see why, because that's where an awful lot of the seers reside as well. Those who see the future, or those who say that Azurin's plan of perfect divine mortal realm awesomeness should never be disrupted. The Kadai are nothing but disdain, but when it comes to the underworld gods, it is complicated, and I wouldn't like to say that disdain is the right word. I'd instead say complicated. It'd be one of those things on Facebook where, for those of us who are still on Facebook, I am not, but for those of us who still are, they would put the relationship status to complicated.
Yeah, I think an answer you could argue with it. So I will say her relationship with him is definitely going to be very different than Nagash, where Nagash hates all of them and very much wants to be one, and he refuses to acknowledge or deal with them in any way. Morathi uses gods as tools. Yeah. So she has a much more complex, really, like Andy was saying, her relationship is much more complex, whereas Nagash is just, I broke up. We broke up. I don't talk. We don't talk anymore. I refuse to acknowledge them because I hate them.
Yes, agreed, completely.
Necromancer Cobalt, I love Muna Mim's depiction of mustache evil. Muna Mim's more like Saturday morning cartoon evil, where she does have mustache twirling and grand speeches, but on the inside she's very sad and lonely and just wants someone to talk to. So you're right, but
yeah,
also yeah.
That.
Morning Crescent. Given Games Workshop, I doubt it was intended, but if I had to ask who had the most soft power in Warhammer, Morathi would be right there. And in a war game, soft power often gets overlooked.
I agree. And sadly, soft power is something that is always genuinely dropped by most Warhammer writers on women, which really annoys me more than I can actually say. Soft power. Oh, let's give that to Neferata. She is the epitome of soft power. Because she is. Morathi's up there. I wouldn't necessarily say that she's the most powerful in the world, but I would say that her plans are the most that concern the world as a whole, where others are much more concerned about their own petty individual needs.
She certainly is one of the most practiced veterans at the game. That can be said.
Defo.
All right, and we're caught up. Woohoo!
Well done.
So,
where are you going to start?
Last time we left off basically right a little bit after the Sundering.
We did.
We went through
skimmed the Sundering.
Yeah, which we covered in detail in the past.
We're almost certainly going to cover it again in a different way from in the future. But I'm
sure we'll do a Sundering episode / series at some point.
Yeah.
Because it's very well detailed
and it's wild as well.
Yeah. So the Sundering has happened. If you want to learn everything about kind of Morathi the elf per se, and everything that came beforehand, go back to part 1. Today we're going to be talking a lot about what you could consider Morathi the dark elf, where the Civil War has happened. The dark elves have fled Ulthuan and they have established themselves in the land of Chill, which used to have very little about it. Then the old world kind of retconned it and was like, no, the elves kind of had some colonies there and knew what was going on there, which makes way more sense, to be honest, because it's not that far from Ulthuan. And they have basically set up shop in our world's vague equivalent to the area around the Great Lakes. And it's a harsh environment. But when they came here, one of the really important things that we'll just jump right into is that this was not an arbitrary place. They didn't just like throw a dart and see where the waves took them. It was with deliberate intent. Morathi being the main force behind this intent, because there's a specific place you wanted to go, which is that as all the Black Arcs beached themselves against the land, which was very convenient because that means you're showing up. Let me just
interrupt to say, Black Arcs are the literal cities the Dark Elves used to live in, uplifted. There's their fortresses just go across the waters. Indeed, the first cities of the Dark Elves are their old cities just moved across the water and dropped.
Having your biggest, most important places already built, ready to go is very nice. All the infrastructure's in place. They got all their systems. What valuable land they had with like farms and other assets and all that stuff ready to go.
It's classic bullshit elf nonsense where they literally took their cities with them. So the classic, I'm taking my ball, you don't get to play with it. They took their whole city, crumbling Ulthuan behind them as they shattered it and just went across the oceans. And the first Black Arcs, they're the great big war fortresses of the Dark Elves. The great massive warships are the original Dark Elf towers and bastions that were held during the Sundering.
Yeah, so as these great fortresses are, magic's being used to functionally kind of rebind them to the land. Because these would go on to become Nagaron, Harganeth, and a lot of the like well, maybe not Harganeth, but a lot of the port cities. So Nagaron,
ports.
I can't remember all of the ports off the top of my head, but look at a map.
Carcharodh.
Yes, Carcharodh's a good one. Yeah.
Pick one off the top of my head.
Yeah, so as that's happening, Morathi leads a group of various sorcerers and sorceresses at this time, because they still have sorcerers at this point.
They have sorcerers just now.
And she leads them a little bit north into...
quite far north.
Yeah, well,
it's
grand scheme. But there's a mountain range that separates the Land of Chill from the Chaos Space. And this Morathi leads them up into these mountains because what she kind of reveals at this point is that on top of these mountains, there's a specific region that when you're up there, because of where it's positioned, it has this really perfect resonance essentially with the winds of magic and seeing into the realm of chaos itself. It's almost like, imagine like if you're someone that wanted to go look at like the stars and you just know the perfect place that when you go out to, it has the most brilliant, perfect, beauteous view where you can examine all of the greatest details. There's no light pollution. There's no interactions. There's no planes. There's no satellites there. And you know this spot. Morathi knows this spot. And she basically comes up with the, I am going to have a tower here. Get to work. Because
it's worth just add a small detail on that. It's worth noting she's a seer. I know the perfect spot is very, very obvious where it comes from. She's a seer. She knows exactly where to go. And what she's looking for is something that all seers are looking for. The best scrying bowl. The best thing to tell the future from. Her perfect cup of tea that gives her the tea leaves that she can later on read. And her scrying bowl is the northern gate of chaos, where she can better watch the fluctuations of the winds of magic and what the chaos gods themselves plan. She intends to literally monitor the chaos gods themselves.
Yeah, and they get up the Tower of Grond real quick. And the Tower of Grond is not just a vault of some of the most dangerous and powerful, horrific magical artifacts in the world. It's not just a place where demons uncounted have been bound into like the very stone and all sorts of other nastiness. It's not just an incredibly powerful defensive fortress. It is all of this, but most importantly, it's functionally kind of like a telescope. It's something that can be wielded to allow the person at the top to, not the literal top, but the person in control of it, to peer into the realm of chaos and not go completely batshit insane, and also funnel all of that incredible amount of power and magic into a, well, for her, safe to use, understandable method. For others, it would probably not be safe to use.
In some respects, it's almost like the whooshing compass over in...
that's a really good way to put it.
Over in Cathay. Okay, where the whooshing compass is taking the winds of magic that are coming down from the north and it's channeling the winds of magic across Cathay into where they're most useful. And Grond is basically channeling the winds of magic directly into Morathi because she'll find it most useful. And that's a very simplistic way of putting it, but ultimately she sits at the center of this great confluence of magic and peers into chaos itself, to not only understand it, but to predict it and to hopefully ensure and steer the Dark Elves in the correct direction. And it's not just the Dark Elves, but as far as she's concerned, because she is an elf at heart, not a Dark Elf at heart, to secure all elves and secure the world, because she intends, with the sighting of Grond and the formation of Grond and effectively the execution of it, to preserve the world. And that's how grand her ridiculous schemes are, and how important she thinks she is to those schemes, and why she does something as stupendously stupid as to stare into chaos at all times. But this isn't something that she takes on alone. She has an entire group that come with her to deal with this.
And she is very, very successful. And once again, this place is not like a casual little thing. It's massive. It is a big old tower. We actually spoke about it. If you go check out our tier list string where we tier listed the colleges of magic, but we also included other magical institutions. We have the Tower of Grond. And one of the big reasons for that is that Morathi brings all of the other sorcerers, magic wielders, trying to say sorcerers and sorceresses, but
sorceresses.
Sorceresses. Too many errors. She brings them all together, and this is a place where they can learn at her feet, and also their own methods contribute to hers. And she establishes what will come to be known very, very soon as the Covens. And this is, if you go back and check our live stream, we talked about that Morathi is a genius when it comes to manipulating the gods and getting favors out of them. And we talked a lot about Cain. This is where she gets hook, line, and sinker Hecate, because she basically takes the Coven of Sorceresses of Grond, or the Covens of Grond, is literally just the cults of Hecate, because there are 6 of them.
And to make sure we understand this nice and clearly, Hecate is the dark elf god, and I'm saying dark elf in particular because it's the underworld gods. It's the elf god in truth, but the dark elf god of magic, in particular, dark magic. Hecate establishes dark magic, presumably alongside Morathi. And dark magic is created by Hecate, the great weapon against chaos. Chaos use dark magic as well, but chaos use chaos magic. That's their great one. Nurgle magic, Slanesh magic, Tzeentch magic. Hecate made dark magic. Chaos picked that up too, which is why chaos used dark magic also, but it's a creation of the elves. It's a unique thing. It's not like high magic, which was distilled and messed around with by multiple species. Dark magic comes from Hecate, the goddess of dark magic, and ultimately Morathi. She is the first one to ever use it, and she teaches it because she's literally the boss of dark magic.
So this ends up heavily securing that goddess's favor, because Hecate is Hecate, to put it very simply, is a very desperate god in some senses for the affection and the worship of the elves. She desires
She loves the elves.
She does. And
yeah,
unfortunately, they don't tend to love her back that much. Especially,
she does dark magic.
yeah. And her sister, the goddess of pleasure, tends to be much more beloved by the elves.
Sex, drugs, and rock and roll, man.
Yeah.
Dark magic and cackling. Sex, drugs, and rock and roll. Who's going to win?
So Morathi is able to fully just bring Hecate completely on board. And each, and for those that don't know, Hecate has 6 arms, each of which holds an artifact.
A sacred artifact.
A sacred relic to her. And so each of these branches of the Cult of Grond is significant to an aspect of Hecate's 6 aspects. And so Morathi now has built up this really core thing of power. And this is where we start having various things happening in the background, where you have like Malekith learns very likely from his mother, and likely very deliberate on her part, a prophecy. that this prophecy foretells of a great warrior, a great notable individual of the Warhammer world who will be cast down and killed by a man that wields magic. And Malekith, at his mother's prodding, and this comes off as very deliberate. Malekith is basically poisoned against the idea of having male sorcerers.
Yeah, completely. And it's hard poisoned. Malekith listens to his mum for good reason. Up in Grond, which becomes the Tower of Prophecy for, I think, pretty obvious reasons, their entire job is to perceive what's going to come to direct the Dark Elves in the right direction. Malekith is told by his mum, who has been telling him things his entire life, that he is likely to be killed by a male sorcerer. It's going to happen, dude. Here's the prophecy. This is from us. We know our shit. This also happens to coincide with Hecate loving what I've done and not pissing off authority too much, although does a little bit, where we've got all of our lovely, beautiful sorceresses who are now moving into place. It is a calculated move of relatively obvious source from Morathi to secure divine support for what she's doing and to effectively secure her control over all magic at the same time, and to ensure that others always have to turn to her to get access to these magics and the greater mysteries and secrets of dark magic. I mean, well done, Morathi. And if you want an external support to this, what happens with this prophecy? Fuck all. Could they have done something with this prophecy in the end times? Hell yes. Did they? No. The prophecy is basically bullshit. And if the prophecy comes true in Age of Sigmar, like tens of thousands of years later, that's bullshit too, because whenever you have that length of time, anything could have been prophesized that would come true in that time. It's basically bullshit. Games Workshop are never going to kill Malekith.
The closest it ever got was the Battle of Pelennor Fields.
Indeed, and even then, bullshit.
It never happens.
It never happens. So, cut a long story short, this is Morathi utilizing her position to secure what she needs to secure her power base, and all of that is needed to secure which is her ultimate goal, which is the very best sorceresses, all under her control, all working towards one goal, which is effectively prophesizing the future and kicking Chaos's butt.
Now, here's a really, really cool thing about
Pelennor Fields was indeed, you mean Finuval Plain.
Finuval Plain, the other major elven battle.
Pelennor Fields, a bit Lord of the Rings friendly there.
Fucking Christ.
I didn't even catch that.
I've been traveling so much this week. Anyway, so you know what I mean. Shut up, chat. This was a very, very clever move that allowed Morathi to basically get rid of any male rivals. And you may go, well, what about the female rivals? Did she just not worry about them? No, she dealt with them too. And the way she did is that when she built this great mighty Tower of Grond, and she's been given all these blessings and secrets by Cain that have allowed for eternal youth and beauty and all this stuff, there's a third component, which is that Hecate has to be kept in very careful balance with her sister, Authority, the Lady of Pleasure, or the Lady of Desire, more accurately. Because Authority, much like her sister, gets very easily jealous. And Morathi pulls off a 40 chess genius level move, which is that she's gotten rid of the males, but now she has a bunch of very, very, very powerful rivals that are all women. Who have now been gifted all of these deep secrets about how to use dark magic and the blood blessings or magic, if you want to call it that, of Cain, to make themselves divinely beautiful. Like, genuinely. So beautiful that they are as beautiful as God.
Cain's brides.
Yeah. Morathi, though, allows them and encourages them to give in to their greater excess. And they do. Morathi doesn't and plays her and just waits, because one day Authority comes down hard, because Authority notices that some of these sorceresses are being basically worshipped for their beauty, and she begins to suspect that these women either believe or potentially could become more beautiful than her. So in her wrath, she curses all of them and turns them into hideous bestial monsters with the minds of beasts, no longer able to cast sorcery, letting them keep just enough sentience or sapience, whatever you want to call it, just enough intellect that they can remember all of which they've lost, and they become the Bloodrack Medusae.
Yeah, we've got ourselves a bit of a retelling of Medusa's tale here. Getting too beautiful and getting cursed to be a monster for eternity by one of the gods. And it is a myth, almost, in terms of how it's pitched. But it's a myth which certainly is grounded in reality, because the literal characters responsible for it are still alive in the world, telling their tales directly. Telling their tales, admittedly, is a bit of a cautionary tale. Don't piss off authority. Which is ultimately, if we look at this for what it actually is don't piss off Morathi. Because if you piss off Morathi, this is what happens to you. For all we say, authority did it because authority was jealous because of mortal beauty. The likelihood of that is super low.
Ritual.
Okay,
that was a Morathi ritual.
Super low. The truth of it is quite clear. The truth of it is, yeah, it's probably associated with authority, and authority almost certainly wasn't too disappointed with the outcome, given the outcome very much is associated with her and gives her extra power in a variety of interesting ways. But it's Morathi. Morathi has taken out her greatest rivals by manipulating them with the very pleasure cults that she used before, moved them down a route, and they get punished. Now, the exact method of the punishment doesn't actually matter, whether it's Morathi, whether it's a Malekith, Malarian, whether it is authority, whether it's simply the very nature of what happens when you go too far with a particular cult, doesn't matter, because it is at heart by Morathi's design. It's what she needs. The sorcerers are now under control. The sorceresses are now under control. All the old ones are gone. She is the oldest. She is the most powerful. And all of the new ones coming in are in her schools. She's won. She has now cornered magic completely cornered magic in Nagaroth. Nagarond, pardon me. No, Nagaroth. Get my right on.
Both, technically, but yeah.
Yeah, both. She's cornered magic. You could say, but what about Malekith Malarian? Not as good at magic as Morathi is. Said in multiple places, even with his mighty, crazy crown of naughtiness. And taught by her. What the big story of Malekith is often forgotten is he can also do high magic. Totally can. It's multiple places he does it. That's something that Morathi doesn't do, but doesn't mean she can't do either. Because she made sure he was taught in it when he was younger. That was back in the elf time, because he was going to be the ultimate Phoenix King. He was going to be able to use both dark and high magic. That was the point of him. So she doesn't completely control that aspect of him, but beyond that, she's got it covered. Magic is now hers across Nagaroth, and that's quite the cornering. Well done, that girl.
Yeah. So, and then she closes the lid. So she's run across first, second, and third base, and she takes it home, which is that she goes to her son and she says, Malarian, Malekith, my dear child, all of these Kithorite cults, all of these potential chaos cults, they're going too far. They're too excessive. You need to rein them in. And he goes, you're right, mother. I do need to rein them in. And Malekith comes out and makes a great decree, which is that he is the living avatar, the living representative of Cain. Cain will be the official big dog, and they're going to have a acknowledgement and system in place for all of the gods to be worshipped, but it will be in an appropriate, restricted manner, not allowing people to just give into their wildest excesses and get cursed and do other things that have been going a little rampant lately. And the cults get chained. They get, once Morathi has gotten everything she needed from them, they get not suppressed per se, but they get
close to it though.
Yeah, it is. You could argue it's suppression.
Yeah, I mean, because and there's a reason for this, and it's historical in the real world. It's because the original depiction of the Dark Elves was chaos, and then they realized that chaos wasn't at all appropriate, and it became Cain. They uplifted the human god Cain, and they made it a dark elf god and an elf god, and that's how Cain became the most important god for them. Then they added all the rest of the pantheon and had to justify why the rest of the pantheon of the elven gods wasn't worshipped. So they retrofitted it back in and said because Malekith said so, yeah.
Yeah.
And effectively, they are chained down. And yes, of course, there's a real world historical reason, because that wasn't how it was all set up to begin with, and they had to justify why Cain had reached such preeminence. But the story is nice and consistent now, and that story is that Malekith claims to be the avatar of Cain, the avatar of the very weapon his father carried. He claims to be his manifestation on the mortal realms, and that is a big fucking claim, given it's almost certainly a lie.
Yeah, one of the things that's really funny is that Malekith very deliberately is like, this is bullshit, this is obviously not true, but and there's this also really funny implication that a lot of the Cainites, like your Hellebronds, also know that it's bullshit, but they're like, I'm not going to say anything because I'm not stupid.
Because we all know the actual truth. If he was anyone, it would be Azurian. Because he went into the flame. And if we want a story here, we've got a very obvious one. He didn't like it. He didn't want to be like his dad. His dad broke. There's all manner of reasons for why he wouldn't be happy with what occurs next. But what we know for certain is that he is exceedingly powerful, and he claims that power. Holy shit! Seriously?
Yeah, well, we'll deal with that in just a second.
Oh, my Lord. Hell. We'll get to that in just a moment. I'm slightly stunned. He is exceedingly powerful, and he claims that power comes from Cain, which is a dangerous boast to make when it's a lie, and it is a lie. There is no doubt about it. It's a lie. We have multiple examples of others that Cain favors later, and almost certainly could be an avatar or some equivalent coming through for Cain, and it ain't Malarian. It ain't Malekith. He has his power from a different source, but that means we have a story here that's not told. Why can he claim it and not be punished? And we know the answer. His mum and Cain are like this. They are like this. And his mum goes, hey, Cain, I want to do this because we need to justify why my son is the way he is. I'm going to have him claim this, and it will neatly tidy up all the problems with everything else. And it will really help everything land. And Cain's like, yeah, war, yeah, let's do that. I don't care, bitch, let's go. Woo! And away they go. Malekith is not punished. Malekith is not Cain's avatar, but Malekith is ridiculously powerful.
Yeah, and you can very much see that Cain, Cain is given the preeminent cult status. He is Harganeth is almost entirely dedicated purely to him, and he eats good. There is clearly an understanding reached on some level that leaves
ritual after ritual after ritual after ritual. And Morathi doesn't stop doing that either. She's throwing all manner of shit towards Cain too. Across all of Nagaroth, Cain becomes the center of the majority of Dark Elf interest and Dark Elf push. And you could come up with lots of different reasons as to what difference that makes. If you subscribe to the idea that worship makes a difference, then it's made a difference for Cain. If you subscribe to the idea that there's a ban on the real world and the gods coming into the mortal realms are placed by Azurin, and they're trying to find a route through, and possibly that's what all the rituals are basically doing, providing Cain with more potential to come in and bring Ranadandra early, you could do that one with this as well. All that really matters, regardless of the real reason behind it all, is that Cain's cult reaches preeminence amongst the Dark Elves, and I cannot stress how important it becomes to them as a race, as a faction, as a group. And this is driven entirely by Morathi. Malekith is the one saying it all. He's the one who says, this is what's happening. This is why we're doing it. This is why it's important. Everyone thinks it's Malekith, but it's Morathi.
So let's grab this real fast and get caught up on Super Chats here. Nystra, holy shit, thank you. That is wildly generous. When Morathi made the prophecy, Malekith killed by a male sorcerer could be true, but wrongly read / idea. I think it was meant that there will be 1 or 2 male sorcerers that will help create powerful, soon to be dead, or more like undead wizards such as Nagash. Or I could just be reading things wrong. I mean, no, that's so. I think that if I were dealing with this, granted, games, to put it very bluntly, if we're dealing with real world stuff, Games Workshop just forgot about it and didn't give a shit.
Exactly.
But if we're doing what we should be doing, especially here on Lorebeards, and we're trying to make it work, I very much agree that it should be a real prophecy. It's just not about Malekith.
Yeah, I think it's absolutely essential it's a real prophecy, because Malekith Malarian has to believe it. And if his mum lies to him directly, that is going to be found out at some point, and it's going to cause a rift. One of the reasons that she hangs around for so long when she is perceived to have betrayed and worked against her son so many times is because at its heart, he believes her. He believes in her purpose, and he believes that she will guide him in the correct direction. If she didn't believe this, Grond wouldn't exist, because he wouldn't believe all the prophecies that come from the Tower of Prophecy. He believes what they offer, which means there has to be some truth in this. There just has to be. And we could build lots of stories to make that true. You could go with, it's not Malekith, it's another wizard. You could go with, it's not a male Dark Elf sorcerer, it's just a male sorcerer from somewhere else. There's lots of different tales that we could twist on it. I would prefer if it was directly related to Malekith Malarian, because ultimately that is what Malekith Malarian was afraid of. What his mother said was going to come, so it should involve him. As to the interpretation of it, though, that's really open.
Yeah, I think if I was going to play around with it, it might be fun to have it actually be flipped, where Malekith thinks it's about a story about him being killed, but in reality, it's a story about him killing someone else, which could be fun. But
I bring this one up from Scallywag because I do think it's worth noting. Doesn't part of the reason that Malekith flees from Finneville Plain because Teclis, a male wizard, fucks him up and he gets scared of the prophecy? It depends on your reading of it.
I mean, most versions are he was going to die if he didn't get out of the way, and so he just did the only thing he could to get out of the way.
Yeah, and as we've discussed in previous streams, it was just a beautiful example of how the escape card worked in the Warhammer Magic rules at the time, because any wizard could do this in the Warhammer Magic rules at the time. This isn't something that was uniquely Malekith. Any wizard could play the escape card into the realm of chaos and come back later. It became a massive pull-up point and will, as we discuss the stream further, really change how Morathi interacts with the world later when her son fucks off after this battle. But we'll be getting to that a little bit later. I think that could be taken into account, and it certainly could bring about an outcome that Morathi perhaps didn't necessarily intend. But as we know, if she is the seeress she claims to be, perhaps even this was something that she wanted. It's one of the difficulties with seers. You can never take what they say at face value when they have potentially seen everything you're going to say, and they say themselves already, so they're just saying whatever they need to say to get the outcome path that they're looking for.
Yeah, in a perfect world, when and if the Dark Elves are released for the old world, it'd be nice to see GW look at the prophecy and be like, oh yeah, we should probably do something with that. Now that we kind of vaguely know how the story ends, how can we maybe fix this?
It would be super lovely if they did, but it's a good one.
And thank you again, Nystra. That was
that's awesome. Thank you
generous.
So much.
Lord Inquisitor Sarah, what happens when a human worships a non-human god like Loremaster of Sotek? Is there any strange manifestation or effect of the gods themselves? I lied, I guess. It's 2 questions. It'll probably be 6 total. So, first of all, thank you for the super chats. You're the only one holding you to the system that you've interpreted. But so this comes back to a thing we've said a lot about on LAWhammer, which is that to start with,
Warhammer.
Warhammer.
You're doing what I do.
I'm so tired. There's not really a thing of like a human god or an elf god. They're just gods. So anybody can worship any god. Now, certain gods might be more predisposed to to respond to certain races. But I would say that when you have a human worshiping a god that's not traditionally associated with humans, there can be effects. Now it is going to be weird, more than likely. But I mean, there are cults of Cain. A lot of the human gods are
Loads of them, and they've got their own blessings.
likely.
They've got their own stuff.
Yeah,
This one's really easy. Does the god respond? If you believe it's the gods responding, then that's the only question you need to answer. So would Sotek respond? The answer is almost certainly no. But Sotek has popped up in a couple of human carvings as a snake god. It's not purely the lizardmen who have got that in. That's popped up in a couple of different books down through the roleplay side of things rather than the battle side of things. Lilith has been known under multiple names over in human realms as well. Azurin, the Azure Man, known as well. Kurnus, known as Kurnus, or there's various versions of Kurnus popping up inside the human realms. Verena, Hoeth, yeah, they are all there doing their thing. Now, some people don't like conflating those gods, but they've been conflated by GW whether you like it or not. It's just what it is. So what is the effect? If the gods are responding, then we've got ourselves a blessed priest, assuming that's what you believe is the outcome that occurs. So there we go. I mean, it happens.
Yep. Pancake Awake. It was theorized in a previous stream that the ancestor god that became Hashid did because he knew that a chaos god was about to be created. Did Morathi tip him off somehow with her unique visions? That is possible. I would say that seems highly unlikely. I've actually been reading a good bit of the new Hashit lore because it's been coming out in a lot of articles in White Dwarf magazines, which I get the monthly ones. And the stuff they've said so far is pretty interesting. This isn't really a stream for it, so I'm not going to get into it. We likely will probably have some kind of stream in the near future. Where
I mean, how can we know? We predicted this shit.
Yeah. They've done some things that I actually think are genuinely clever. So we'll talk about that soon. Singemeister, Teclis and Eowyn, killing witch kings and prophecies. Well, one of those was much more successful than the other, is what I will say.
Much more.
Teclis missed the crucial stabbing him in the face part.
No, man. Nice.
Necromancer Kobo, I'm curious, what's the difference between the Cauldron of Blood and a Blood Rack Shrine? So, to put it very bluntly, Cauldrons of Bloods are Cain artifacts. Blood Rack Shrines are authority artifacts, is the easiest way to put it. One's a big Cauldron of Blood, one's a big mirror.
And they are doing very different things as well. They're different artifacts.
Yep. They're just built using the same mini kit. So that's cool.
Yes.
But that's the only
That's a thing.
Bob Kazamakis, one of the Wolfer books had Emmanuel learning of the blood cauldrons and wanting immortality. Would the Dark Elves say, yay, I want more Dark Elf influence in the Empire?
No.
Yeah, no, they would.
Just no. They are not going to be handing that shit out. No.
Now, even among Dark Elves, they don't give that. One of the biggest beefs between Morathi and Hellebron is literally that Morathi will not tell Hellebron the deeper secrets of the Cauldrons of Blood. So Hellebron has to keep renewing herself every year.
And it's often sort of suggested, Morathi's got the only one that works. And all the rest are cursed by her.
She has, which is explored in Age of Sigmar, is super cool. She has the Mother Cauldron, which has its own storyline. And it's great. Scallywag 11, almost parallel between Morathi setting Malekith up to take power and Morathi setting up Cain's cults to achieve supremacy. Yep.
Yes, agreed, Scallywag. There is definitely, when you look at the overall stories and you start trying to understand why they exist the way they exist, rather than simply taking them at face value and saying, yes, authority cursed them all because beauty. But when you actually look at the overall stories, you see that there is a pattern of behavior. And that pattern of behavior is clear, and you've alighted upon part of that, I think. And it's Morathi's.
All right, then we've got Alpha. What if the prophecy is that the male wizard is Malekith, and the reason he's supposed to die is to step into the flame of Shur and incarnate as him? That's clever.
Nailed it. That's nailed it. That is exactly what it is in my world, and always has been. I wrote that into one of my campaigns. That the Morathi used a real prophecy. What I was hinting at earlier, it has to be real. She used the real prophecy to manipulate him, and the real prophecy is he's the fucking Phoenix King to be. He has to be. And the male sorcerer is Malekith. The one who's going to spell his death is himself, because he has to do what his father did, which is die in that shrine.
which he really does not want to do, to be fair. Most people don't, because he's tasted that and probably is not interested for a second helping.
And unlike the Phoenix Kings, they didn't have spells cast on them so they could walk out the other side.
Yeah, Massive Dirt finally caught a stream live. Well, welcome. So glad you can join us.
Glad to there.
All right, so back to Morathi. So we have the construction of the Tower of Grond, and it gets further expanded. A fun thing about the Tower of Grond is one of the Tower of Prophecy, as it's also known, as Andy mentioned, is that it is such an important place for the sake of magic that after Morathi builds it, it sort of accidentally ends up having a secondary effect, which is that it basically works as almost like a magnet for chaos sorcerers. So all of these demon princes and chaos sorcerers, really powerful guys, go, I need to get into that tower, because if I can see all sorts of good shit. And it starts getting attacked over and over and over. And although Grond is able to pretty effortlessly kick the shit out of all of them, repel them, it gets genuinely so annoying that not only do they fully upgrade the defenses of Grond, it has all these great walls and everything, and it's a huge fortress. It's not just like a little tower on a mountain. It's a big-ass city and fortress. But this ends up leading to the creation of the Dark Elf Watchtowers, to basically create a bit of a funnel so that only the most powerful, or those that are allowed to come in, chaos armies are able to get through, because Morathi is really, really clever, and not everyone that comes to the Tower of Grond is necessarily turned away.
Yep.
So long as they have something to offer. Which is
everyone's a tool to Morathi. Just because you're an idiot that aligned yourself with Slaanesh or Khorne or Nurgle or just chaos in general or some minor power, whatever the hell else it might be, if you can bring something to the table, you can sup. That is the nature of Morathi. She is a user, and she is not someone who discriminates in the same way that almost everyone else does in the Warhammer world. If you say to someone in the Warhammer world, here is a chaos worshipper, almost everyone who isn't on their side says this, die, and charges them in some fashion or another. Now, they might do it metaphorically because they're not very physically capable, but their basic thing is absolute fear, abject horror. What you represent is time to kill you. Morathi's not like that. She's like, yeah, my ultimate goal is to disempower all of it. And sometimes she takes a more authority route in that she uses seduction and persuasion, and she takes chaos and uses chaos against themselves. Often the tribes are fighting each other because of her. When she says, yeah, you can have this shit if you give me this. It's owned by that tribe out there. Away you go. Go do your thing. And she is quite the manipulator, not just of the Dark Elves to the south, but the Chaos tribes to the north. And in more than one instance, she will come to lead several sections of those Chaos tribes directly. And whether you go with the alternate timelines from, say, the Storm of Chaos, or whether you just go with, say, the Great War against Chaos, where the Chaos effectively ally with the Dark Elves, because the Dark Elves are seeking to use Chaos to get what they want out of Ulthuan. There is lots of different ways that Morathi is directly impacting the North in ways that aren't expected. Most think it is either war or defense, and the classic, it's chaos, we hate them. Morathi is much more complicated than that, and it's fair to say Dark Elves are much more complicated than that. Yes, they've got their big long string of watchtowers to the north that they use to hold off any potential attack from the north, but those watchtowers are somewhat more akin to Hadrian's Wall in the UK than they are to, say, for example, the Great Wall of China. The Great Wall of China is one gigantic block to keep everything out. Hadrian's Wall was more like a trading post. It marked the edge of the Roman Empire, but there were Romans beyond the edge, and they traded with everything that lay to the north. It wasn't this great embattled line that they went to war across. There wasn't massive fights across Hadrian's Wall. Quite the opposite. It was an impressive symbol of Roman authority and Roman control, and where the edge of their empire was. And somewhat similarly, these great watchtowers that lie across the north, it's Warhammer. Of course, there's war all the time, but they are much more a symbol of Dark Elf power and authority beside the mess that is the realm of chaos to the north. Well, the chaos wastes to the north. And it stands as a gigantic symbol of Dark Elf supremacy, or just elf supremacy over everything that lies in that area. And sometimes they use the tribes to the north, sometimes they fight them, sometimes they just use them for sport and as slaves. They are ultimately the lords of that entire area. They control it as far as they're concerned.
Yep. And so that's everything we really need to get into right now, specifically for Grand. And all of the specifics of this for this era of the world, because a lot of time passes. Malekith in this era focuses a lot on kind of fighting back and forth with like Kalador the First. They eventually kill Kalador in a move that feels very Morathi coded, because he basically gets caught in a magical storm that isolates him from his fleet, and then he gets surrounded and attacked, and he kills himself rather than be caught. And this leads, of course, to the ascension of Kalador II, which Malekith plays him like a damn fiddle. I don't even think he needed his mother's help on that one. Kalador II was an idiot. And there is a whole actual thing of Malekith rebuilds, and they build up, with Morathi very much in the background. So I'm not going to get too much into specifics because we're here for Morathi. But time passes, and Morathi comes back in basically after the next failed invasion of Ulthuan, where Kalador II is killed by High King Gotrek Starbreaker. And after his death, Caradryle takes over. Caradryle is a pretty decent Phoenix King, but then he dies, and he's replaced by Tethys the Slayer, who's a fucking monster, who actually was terrifying, and chases the Dark Elves back out. So the Dark Elves are back home, and this is where Morathi kind of re-enters the story, because she's been mostly in the background for a bit. And what essentially happens, and this is actually a story I really enjoy. This was 8th edition going kind of wild, but I love this story.
Yeah, I like this one too.
Which is that the first big thing is that Malekith starts getting kind of crept up on by what we know as the Ennui of the elves.
Ennui,
whatever. Which is that when they live a really long time and their souls are kind of out of balance.
That's going to go in our bingo card, you know.
It will.
Sotek mispronounces ennui.
There's no one that says it like that over here. That's all I'm saying. But he kind of starts to just sort of get almost elf depressed, essentially, sinking onto his throne and becoming less and less active. And his mother immediately realizes the threat, because it's a genuine threat to elves. Because you can imagine an elf becoming like a Slann. Which is where they're just sitting there for centuries, not doing anything. And Morathi takes action. There's a note that she starts making daily big sacrifices to Cain, trying to look for ways, trying to inflame Malekith's soul. And nothing's really getting to him. She even sets apart a plot that leads to the rather amusing, but also terrifying destruction of Har Kaldra. Which was also sometimes known as the City of Sorcerers, where she basically creates a plot against her son, and the Har Kaldra falls for it, and then Malekith gets so angry that he obliterates most of the city through sorcery, and he creates what we know as the Doomfire Warlocks by cursing all of the sorcerers there. And it's an ugly curse, but that's not important for today. This then leads to something very unexpected for genuinely everyone, which is that a guy shows up from Athel Loren who says, "Hey, your wife's alive." And everyone who's ever read Warhammer lore and is reading the 8th edition Dark Elf book goes, "His what?" And it's revealed that Malekith had a wife, Alisara, who isn't just any wife, but she is the sister of Ariel. The Queen in the Woods. And
I remember when I first read this, and I think it's just worth interrupting to make a small mention of this, to where I went, huh. And I went, huh, hard, because I had up to that point a very strong idea of what Malekith's character was like in terms of who Malarian was, as we apparently now name him, how he got to where he got to, and what the progress of his character was. And that single word, marriage, blew it away. It spoke to a very different character that was working through the elf era, so before Dark Elves and pre-Sundering time. It spoke to a completely different man. It spoke to someone who had more than his mother in his life. Much, much more than just his mother in his life. And from a powerful line an important line of elves at that. She wasn't some little easily dismissed woman. This is someone who was important, almost certainly his equal in her own way. And I went, that's awesome. Love it, because it just created so much more, and it also made the story I was currently at that point building for Morathi much stronger, because now he looked like a proper king. He looked like someone who was being positioned to lead, and it all kind of, well, as we know, went in a different direction.
So to give a very brief TLDR, because it's important for the next step, of just that she was herself said to be a very gifted seeress that lived in the elven colonies. Malekith took her for a wife when he was the great Malekith the Great, hero of the colonies. He was essentially the king of the colonies, and she married him, and they had a great time. But she had a vision, and it's implied from Lalaith, because it was in a dream, where she saw what Malekith kind of would become, and she got scared and she ran away. And
rightly so.
Yeah, she just vanished, and Malekith was really upset. He looked for her, but eventually he got more and more kind of addicted to his research into dark magic and exploring the world, and went off and found the crown of the Iron Circlet.
So I think there's one other little point Morathi-wise it's worth adding here, and that if we look at Morathi as the best seer that there is, that's loosely where she's pitched, then she saw this coming. Effectively, she was shaping Malekith into the man that she was looking for, to lead the Dark Elves. And being rejected by his wife was a core component of that. You can see it. You can see her manipulation clearly here, as long as you assume that the character traits that she's been given as the seer are correct, and that the gods such as Lalaith really don't like her and where she's going and her direction for what she thinks elves should be, because they're the Kadai, she's much more on the other side with the underworld gods. You can suddenly see that not only is this predictable from just a normal person's view, because what Malekith was going to become is utterly predictable. It's not just predictable from that perspective. As a seer, it's not just predictable, it's a very obvious path. It feels like another example of, yes, he must marry a seer, because I need him to marry someone who will spurn him. That must occur. So the whole setup looks like, again, Morathi's fingertips pulling on the edges.
Now, this moment, I will say I love a lot, because what I would pitch this as, this isn't how it's stated, but I want to throw this to you all, of keeping in mind how active the gods are and everything Morathi is doing. This is the moment where the Kadai threaten Morathi. And they make their attempt to basically ruin her plans, which is that Malekith is struck with ennui, and something from the Kadai side is dangled in front of him to break him out of it, which is...
She's not really Kadai, though, is she? She's a wood elf.
Yeah, but
she's a bit more balanced than that.
Lalaith is the one...
that's fair. That's
pushing
that. No, I get that entirely. But yeah, she's on the wood elf side rather than the Azure side. To support that story, I'd have loved it to be a high elf. That would have been beautiful.
Yeah, but it definitely feels like something, because essentially
what I would have done, I would have probably had her pulled out of somewhere like the Lorelorn rather than pulled out of Athelloren.
That would have been nice.
Then you could have kept those
at
high
the time
elf
of 8th edition Lorelorn.
I really like the story you're pitching, because I like it. I think it works well.
I agree a lot, because poor Lorelorn, 8th edition was like, the what? That's
the what? Yeah, totally.
But in any event, so Alisara basically has been like hearing about her husband and kind of feels a, shall we say, a push from somewhere in her soul, stuff, that she should return to her husband, and she wants to. So this emissary is like, hey, your wife sent me and has basically said that if you will accept her, she would like to return to your side. And Malekith goes, oh shit, and it literally says he starts to
looks in the mirror. With the metal mask.
Yeah, and so Malekith tries to return her in secret, which of course keeping secrets from his mother is not possible. It just isn't, because Morathi immediately knows, and Morathi, to her credit, does not fuck around and immediately leaps into action, where she doesn't even, like, Morathi doesn't send an agent. She herself leaves Nagaroth, goes in disguise to Ulthuan, finds this really pathetic, disgraced prince who is a pretty nasty warrior with a very loyal contingent, seduces him, and basically she enchants him and plays him like an absolute fucking fiddle and tells him, hey, there's this like there's about to be a pact between the darkest of the wood elves that's going to threaten Ulthuan. You need to go kill this lady before she does it. And he goes, okay. So he leads his high elf army and they attack the wood elves on the shores of Bretonnia, and he murders Alisara.
So I love this story. I love this story because it's pitched in classic Black and White Games Workshop language of, evil dark elves murdering, the wood elves, cackling. But when you actually look at it for what it is, Morathi wasn't lying. If a wood elf sister of Ariel arrives,
she was completely honest,
and arrives with Malekith, and Malekith rises out of that and goes, you know what? I need to rethink many of the choices that I've made to reach this position. There almost certainly would have been some form of compact between the Wood Elves and the Dark Elves. This is not a controversial story. What Morathi was doing was using the truth to get what she wanted. And what she wanted was a dead heart with Malekith at the very top is an absolutely essential component of her next stages for what she wanted for Nagaroth, and ultimately Ulthuan. And there's nothing that Morathi does that is controversial or weird in terms of the claims that she makes to the people she speaks to. I think that the only thing here that is in doubt is who are the motivators behind the return of this Wood Elf princess. The Kadai make a perfect, I think, choice. They, after all, are the ones who make those the initial steps towards doing it, presumably. Morathi, another one. She makes, again, a very clear case for the person who would be responsible behind it. After all, she's a seer, and she needs this. She needs this outcome because her son is losing it. In fact, the evidence is so massively clear that Morathi knew this was coming and needed it, that even if she didn't set that domino off, as in she didn't directly say, you, come over here, she knew it was coming anyway. She had to. She had been working for decades to get her son into the position that she wanted. And she wanted a son who was broken and losing it and then had hope. So the whole falling into ennui matches her plan completely. The whole return matches her plan as long as she doesn't make it. And she doesn't. And the Malekith that comes out of this is exactly the Malekith she wants. One that is dangerous to her, arguably much more dangerous than the Malekith they had before, because his heart is not just dead to his now dead wife. It's not just dead to the Dark Elves, to the High Elves, everything. It's dead to his mother as well. Just dead. He has become a very different king. And it's the king that she believes that the Dark Elves need to succeed. Someone who will make any decision to get the win, no matter who it hurts or how they may be hurt. So it's a massive gamble from Morathi's side because she might have survived. And if she did, well, her plan is fucked.
Yeah.
Fucked.
But it works. And
but it does, yeah, totally.
There is a rather amusing little note about how when Alisara dies, it actually takes a surprising amount of weeks to get back to him because nobody wants to tell him. Like, nobody wants to be the guy that has to go to Malekith to be like, your wife got killed by some high elf dude. So Morathi herself ends up being the one to tell him. And it goes off exactly how she hoped it would, which is that to say that Malekith was like apocalyptically angry it shakes him out of his ennui. And he just absolutely, he doesn't lose it in the sense that he goes berserk, but that potential part of him is dead forever. And he is solidified as the Witch King to the point that he calls in the Black Council and he ends up, I think, hanging like 8 of them in front of the rest of them to be like, get your shit together. We're invading Ulthuan. Yep. Invasion goes pretty well in the grand scheme of things. This leads to the death of Aethelus the poet and a bunch of other stuff. And now, this is where there is a fun little twist in the moment story, which is that Morathi knew there was going to be a cost to this plot, which is that no matter how good she disguised it, eventually Malekith would figure it out. And it takes him years, but he does figure it out. And he summons his mother. He basically puts her on trial, finds her guilty, and and throws her in the dungeons of Nagaron for a year. Before he finally,
is, by the way, in the greatest scheme of things,
not that long. Yeah. After a year,
creature, a year. You say so. It's a little bit like saying, "Oh, you've committed murder. You've done what? Okay,
time out.
To prison for a day. A whole day. No, I couldn't cope. To prison for a day."
Yeah. So
that one always struck me that it had been written by a human who hadn't actually considered what it was to be Malekith and Morathi.
It is genuine because after a year, he basically just has her dragged back out, and he says something to the effect of like, "All right, I understand what you were trying to do, and I acknowledge that you were correct, but stay out of my life, Mom," and tells her to get out.
And in many respects, it makes sense because Malekith is now broken. Okay, what he is doing is he is not punishing her for what she did. He's punishing her for going against him. Yeah. And it has to be done because it's been found out. But in his actual, much more logical state, he goes, "Nah, I need her. I require her. She is my most loyal and useful tool. We can't remove Malekith's agency from here, even though Morathi is playing him like a fiddle. Even though we all know Morathi kind of knows the outcome anyway, because she is that useful. She knows she'll get off with it. And she does. Because Malekith, from his perspective, it would be stupid of him to get rid of her. So he makes a public show of a trial, and it is a show trial, because the outcome is nothing. Jail. You know, a horrible jail for a year, whatever. Whatevs.
Yeah, and this, of course, has culminated in the big invasion that's currently happening, which that invasion fails only at the last second due to literally the power of gay love between the Phoenix King and Mentheus, the really, really awesome king, or general who gets killed. His dragon just decides, fuck Dark Elves, and basically wins the war. In a berserk rampage.
It's a bullshit end to the war.
Yeah, it's literally the power of Yowie defeats Malekith in that particular invasion. It's very funny.
And one dragon pretty much goes, "You know what? I'm going to end the war."
Yeah, it's goofy, but Malekith basically gets chased home and is pissed. No one dares talk to him except for Morathi, because Morathi's the only one willing to face his rage. But
indeed,
this is where a really important thing for Morathi happens that literally changes the fate of the world, which is that at this point, someone else has finally unraveled Morathi's murder plot, because Alisara was not just a wife, she was a sister to Ariel, who one day will get a Lorebeards, because Ariel is really weird, but
she's really cool though.
Yeah, but demigod, to put it bluntly, very scary demigod. And Ariel had been hell bent on figuring out who killed her sister, because she very quickly realized that the High Elf was not acting normally. There was something else going on. And it got ugly. Like, there are stories about how the Wood Elves were literally popping up all over the world looking for clues, and they were pretty brutally murdering people looking for clues. Like, that prince happened to be from Krace. So Ariel sent her good old husband, Orion, to do a wild hunt in Krace. And they murdered a shitload of High Elves who were so confused because they had no idea what was going on and who these elves, like, why a seeming aspect of Kurnos was murdering them, to the point where Orion is said to feel bad because he feels like he's just murdering helpless.
It's okay. We'll get a new Orion next year.
Yeah, true. Yeah, true. That Orion's going to die depressed, and then the next one will be like, yeah, it's whatever.
Whatever.
But eventually,
Ariel doesn't care.
Yeah, Ariel figures it out. So Ariel tears open the world roots, and through dark magic that she has been teaching herself, which she never used before this point. Ariel didn't use dark magic up until this point in the story. And Ariel has been diving into deeper and darker magics. She, through sheer raw power, rips open the world roots into, I think it's the Witchwood in Nagaroth, or one of those forests up in Nagaroth that had been dead, but like forces it back to life with dark magic. And to say that the Wood Elves unleash an invasion on Grond is a understatement.
It's a massive understatement. This is a lovely opportunity where Ariel actually acts like the character she's described as, and that is a fucking demigod. She is exceedingly powerful, but often she gets lost behind their great love of Orion and his wild hunts popping around all over the place, or their great love of telling the story of the sorceress at its tower that looks out and sees the world corrupting, and oh no, there's nothing I can do about it. Fuck off. She's a fucking demigoddess. And here she demigods like fucking mad. She takes on the heart of Morathi's power and wins.
Yeah, because
she
to give everyone their due credit, Morathi has a garrison that is incredible. They have sought off demon princes and chaos sorcerers and wards. And when the Wood Elves attack, they're ready for attack, even though it is very sudden. And Morathi and the Dark Elves throw everything they have, and to the point where Morathi sends messengers to Malekith that says, we're under attack. Help! And Malekith literally sends a message to all of the rest of the Dark Elf that says, do not help her. She's on her own. Fuck her.
You're on your own, Mom. Sort it yourself. This is your shit. You caused this to happen. You can deal with this shit. And in many respects, again, it speaks to the agency that Malekith has. Now, again, we always have but did Morathi predict it? Who cares? Malekith has got his own free will and he's doing his own things and he's looking at this issue. Now, you might go, well, why isn't he saving his best ally, his mumsy, the one who did the best? Because he's going to get an ally out of this one way or the other. Okay, his mother's going to come back and say, sorry. Really well. Okay, or the Wood Elves are going to come over and say, thanks for letting us get our revenge. And it's going to create a new diplomatic route. Remember, Malekith is a really clever diplomat, which is often forgotten. In fact, go to the 8th edition Dark Elf army list and read their first descriptions in the first paragraphs. It says there clearly, the Dark Elves are the best diplomats the elves have, by far. And this goes contrary to the cackling evil bad guys that everybody always goes, but aren't they? No, they're not. They're not even that in the army list. It's what everyone portrays them as because they just see the salient details and look at those and goes, that means that's this then. No. And the reason they're the best diplomats is because they have to work with each other and they hate each other with a passion that burns brighter than the sun. And they're constantly backbiting, assassinating, and then after the assassination, working with the people who ordered the assassinations because they know how to work together. They know how to do diplomacy. And right over there is an enormous, pissed off, angry elf. And no one deals with angry elves better than Malekith.
Yep. And we're about to see another showcase of genuinely good Dark Elf diplomacy, because the Wood Elves
diplomacy
yeah the Wood Elves
you will
beat the shit out of Grond, and like it's actually described very well in a very cool battle where it's like treemen are like attacking the walls and the Dark Elves are fighting back. Orion leads the wild hunt against them. Ariel shows up herself, and Ariel ultimately breaks the siege when she literally commands these giant roots to plow into the walls of Grond and rip them open. And the Dark Elves are like, oh, well, fuck. Okay. And,
shite.
Yeah. And so they invade the fortress. Grond is essentially sacked, and Morathi is brought before Ariel and Orion. And like,
kind of go up to where Morathi is.
Well, yes, they go up to her chamber.
They go up to where she is. Yeah, they go to her rather than the other way around, which I think is actually an important detail because it also speaks to Morathi. They go up to her. Everything else has been destroyed up to that point, and she is effectively the last boss at the top of the tower. They fought through all the other bosses, and they've arrived, and they're like, ha! We're fighting the last boss. Everyone quickly go to the save point. They go to the save point.
Quick save. F5.
Okay. And they do the speeches between each other. Oh, we're about to do the big boss. Oh, we're about to do the big boss. And inevitably, because it's a computer game, only one goes in. In goes Ariel. I'm going to deal with the boss because there's only one person actually controlling her. And then she goes and she deals with the big boss, and guess who wins?
Yeah. So, interestingly, there is a very fun thing told here that shows that Morathi can think, to put it bluntly, so fast on her feet that it is almost unbelievable in like a good way. Of that, basically, she's dealing with Ariel and Orion, and Orion looks at her and says, "All right, we're here. Kill her.
Yep.
Just kill her. Let's be done with it." And because this has been going on for decades, and Ariel is about to, but Morathi, in that moment of dealing with Ariel, realizes that Ariel's been working with dark magic and that Ariel's not good at it. That's the big thing. She sees that all that dark corruption, all of the someone that is like using incredible amounts of dar, but doesn't understand how to properly filter it, doesn't understand how to unlock its true potential.
Dangerous.
Yeah. And it's corrupting Ariel.
Yeah.
And Morathi sees it and she grabs onto it immediately, where she's basically able to say, "I can see what's wrong with you. I can tell that you're sickening. I can tell that you're not as powerful as you could be. I can teach you. I can teach you everything you don't know about dark magic. I can teach you secrets that will make you beyond powerful." And Orion goes, "Haha, cool idea. I'm going to stab this bitch now." And Ariel goes, "No, wait." And Orion, it causes a actual fight between Orion and Ariel, because Orion, to his credit, although he's kind of simple in a sense, his simplicity in this particular aspect allows him to kind of see this situation for what it is. And
his wife is about to be taken by Morathi.
Yeah, but he always, to his credit, Orion, in a true reflection of the sense of the Everqueen is the big boss, always listens to his wife.
Yep.
Ariel is the boss. They're not equals. In truth, they're not. Ariel is the boss.
Ariel's the older one in truth as well. So we've got it pretty simple here. She's sitting at the top of her tower. They fall all the way up to the last boss. And they have their conversation, and Morathi wins this conversation. We keep it in simple language here.
Yes.
Morathi wins. Her view wins the day, which means that Ariel now becomes her apprentice. And that's fucking amazing. Just amazing, because that means that they have a very different and interesting relationship. Doing dark magic isn't something you learn in a week or a year or a decade. This is the great unspoken relationship of Warhammer. The enormous tie that is bonded here, arguably until the end times, although in the end times it doesn't exist. But it does, because it's in the fucking army list. And for 8th edition, this happened. This fucking happened. And it happens big time. Ariel and Morathi are like that for a significant period of time. Now, it may have started off as a relationship which was deeply one-sided, as in, we have defeated you, you are merely providing this. But that one-sided relationship, as you know, when it comes to master and apprenticeship, is going to flip in a variety of ways. If you want to be classically elven about it, they're lovers. It's as simple as that. That's what elves do.
I'm also going to throw something at y'all that I have never said before, and I'm going to say it now because I've always had it sitting. I'm curious how Andy will feel about it. I think he'll like it. He normally likes these stupid
I love this
theories.
shit.
So, at this moment, just like Morathi has, let's not say corrupted, but almost has dominated Cain, Hakardi, Authority, now she gets... Now, granted, this is a little messy and something we'll talk about one day. A weird, messy
version of,
but a version, an undeniable version of Isha.
Agreed.
Because
I strongly agree with that one.
The core thing is that this doesn't end up happening. This would actually make a good what if episode at some point. But what Morathi teaches Ariel sets off a chain of events that Ariel almost successfully devours Morgar.
Yep, so close.
Isha completely, like, obviously it would have changed her and probably driven her a bit mad, but she was successfully about to eat a god of chaos because Morathi made her that much more powerful.
Yep, like, hard agree on this one. This is a beautiful piece of anti-chaos.
And then Aran fucked it up, but anyway.
Okay, yeah, this whole thing is set up by Morathi. And Morathi looks at a version of an avatar of a god. There is a lot we can discuss about what Ariel actually is, because the avatar is not Ariel. The avatar absolutely is living right now in Avalorn. That is the avatar. Ariel is something very different, but also something arguably more, because Ariel does not have all of her own thoughts. She has Isha's thoughts also. She is a very different entity to the entity that lives over in Avalorn and is seduced by Morathi. Let's make it as simple in language as we can. Seduced, in that she is given something that she wants and she can't say no to it, and she takes it. And that seduction is almost certainly more than just a simple black and white seduction.
Yeah. And to further add to this, it causes such a rift between Orion and Ariel that they stop talking and Ariel stops reviving him.
Yep. It becomes, it's a proper mess that is created by this. Morathi completely pushes her way into... Yeah, Morathi pushes her way into the royal line, arguably, of the Wood Elves, okay, and takes control of it entirely. And you can see the ultimate goal of it when the very powerful Ariel later almost kills a Chaos God directly. You can see the steps. I think Sotek is spot on this. I don't think it's slightly spot on. I think this is what happens. And it's so clearly Morathi's planned outcome that you can't help but do that thing again where you go, Grond was set up to fail. She almost certainly would have sent the sorceresses away that she wanted to keep alive. This whole thing was a trap for Ariel to get what she wanted from the Wood Elves. Did it land the way she wanted? It's difficult to say.
Yeah, one of the things...
A string of events that starts off with the sister going over and ends with this in no way is unpredictable.
Yeah, also...
It's quite fun.
I'll throw 3 other little tidbits to y'all before we have to move on from this part, which is that, number one, Morathi, and if you're about to... Oh, no, I'll say that for the third point. So first, Morathi's plan works so well that in order to stop it, in order to finally end this corruption, if that's how you want to see it, of Ariel, requires literally Adenhu the Wise, one of the 3 greatest ancients of a basically almost a god in his own right, has to kill himself in order to purify it.
Yep.
Which is wild.
Yep.
Second little fun tidbit is that something you may notice is a very notable repeating motif with Morathi is that even though she is a seer, she commits to the bit in the sense that she has nearly died on a coin flip several times. From the time Malekith came after her when he was going after the pleasure cults.
From Anarian's first freeing of her
being
from the
captured by Slash demons.
Cultists. Yeah, absolutely.
To killing Malekith's wife now twice, dealing with that. Like, if she was ever even a little bit wrong, she would have died. Yeah.
And I think that you've got a few choices as to how you wish to interpret this. One, you can just say she's super fucking lucky. Which is legitimately, legitimately,
no, that's no fun,
is a
but
way you
it's
could do
legitimately,
it.
yeah.
Okay, as in the writers just say that she survives because she survives. Classic piece of the authors like her, so she survives. Or,
Mike, yes, but it's Lorebeards. That's what we do.
Exactly. This is what we do. Or you can do what we sort of do, which is look at the character she's been given, the ultimate seer. Look at the character she's also been given, the ultimate manipulator. They quite clearly describe her as the most manipulative elf that there is. And tell me then that we need examples of it. And we don't get examples of it. All we get is Morathi tries all these things and fucks up. That doesn't mean she's the best manipulator of the elves until you look at her stories. And her stories are, and she and Ariel become like that.
And
you're
don't
like,
worry.
wait a minute. That's the example of her perfect manipulation.
Yeah, if you're sitting there going, man, I really want Morathi to kind of suck a little bit, we're almost there. It's about to hit. But a writer is about to do some weird shit. But we'll get there in a second.
To go places.
But
on that one, we do grab some super chats before we get too caught up. I've got one other thing. I know you got your third point. You got your other point.
Yeah, this is. I'm just going to give you a tease. I'm not going to delve into this any further. I'm not going to explain what I mean. And if you're like, Sotek, what the fuck? I want to know more. Then you better push really hard for that Ariel episode. Because what I'll tell you is Morathi, not just Morathi, but Morathi has a daughter with Ariel. I'm going to leave it at that.
Yep.
All right.
So
Super chats.
they are lovers.
We left off here. Lord Inquisitor Saru, would Sotek or Sigmar have symbology that implies either could be a god of the sun or stars? I'm kind of dwarfy. My honor holds me to this. I'm mining information for a fanfic. Oh, crap. It's 8. So I will say, based on what's written, not really. Now, with Sigmar, you have like the comet. The comet.
I mean, the
for
comet
both of
is,
them, you have the comet.
Arguably a shooting star.
Yeah, that would be the closest. So there's something there. Age of Sigmar literally ends up turning Sigmar into the god of the heavens, and Sotek is considered a god beast, and he's like a whole. He's a living constellation. Which, I don't have time to explain it, but the answer is, according to AOS, yes. In fantasy, it's looser, but AOS says 100% it is.
So you could definitely go in that direction. I was going to say no, but the answer becomes yes.
Yeah. Eminence and Fire, back to Morathi. Always back to Morathi, baby. Lord Inquisitor Saru, what sort of stigma, if any, would an Azir mage face if he was attending a Sigmarite church? Unique to normal Sigmarite anti-mage bigotry.
None. He's a legal wizard. Now, that doesn't mean that people aren't going to go, wizard. Ooh, okay, you'll get that no matter where you go, but it's not because you're sitting inside one of the temples of Sigmar. And again, it's temple, not church. They use different terms. So the temple of Sigmar would definitely accept wizards because they are ratified by the Elector Counts, and the cults of Sigmar support them. Now, that doesn't mean that an individual priest or priestess, a cleric, wouldn't say, no, fuck you, I don't like witches. Okay, but they are going against the teaching of Sigmar if they do. And that's really important to note, because the Elector Counts have ratified these legal wizards. Magnus the Pious made a very clear statement that they are considered to be subjects of the Empire, which means if they're being sued Sigmarites, they must support them unless they do something illegal. That doesn't mean that you don't face prejudice. That doesn't mean that there isn't issues, but at its basic point, there should not be a problem here.
Yeah, so I'm gonna sum up simply of that, like of like stigma in the sense of like it's the whole cult. There shouldn't be any. Now you're gonna find a lot of writers that look at that and go, "Fuck that! I'm gonna do my own thing." Because a lot of Sigmarites and a lot of Black Library books are portrayed as extremely anti-magic, which doesn't make sense if you delve into it a lot. Now, obviously, you have like your hardcore witch hunters, but a lot of witch hunters are secular. But it'll be for individuals, but like just in 8th edition alone, you have like a lot of the Templar orders have wizards as part of them and work together with wizards. There's at the Siege of Volganov, there's a really funny bright wizard character in the 8th edition core book who's a hardcore Sigmarite. He's so hardcore that he ends up weirdly fucking up his fireball and turns his fireball into a twin-tailed comet fireball. And there's a really funny comment of some Sigmarite priest thing and being like, that's a little concerning, but like because it's Volkanov, they don't have time to worry about it. But yeah, Lord Inquisitor, what a soul that is not native to Malice / Warhammer world being manifested / isekai into it, gain unique / hostile attention from the ethereal powers that be. Unique attention, maybe if they could tell, that would be up to the rules of the isekai.
Yeah, depending on the rules that were developed. I mean, are they detectable in some fashion? And if they are, there's always going to be an interested party because of the unique information that could potentially be brought to the table. But broadly speaking, probably not. But you could make a story where it definitely was yes. Yeah.
Lord Inquisitors, thank you very much for entertaining all my nonsense. Have a final tip. You contributed to enslaving a poor writer for many minutes. Well, thank you. We really appreciate it.
You rock.
Yeah, and we love talking about those kinds of things. So thank you very much.
We can't help ourselves.
Jonathan Scott, 13-year-old me was very affected by that pinup poster. Are we talking about Morathi? Or
I mean, there's a few interesting images of Morathi, but you know, I don't think any of them have really done her justice yet. There's not one that I go, that's fucking Morathi. The 6th edition one's pretty decent.
Guys, they would never do it nowadays, but it's very funny to me to imagine if GW had sold like pinup posters of
they did the calendar that was released by Black Library had Morathi as the front cover.
Oh,
that was yeah, indeed. That's the image I used for this one because it made me laugh. So the image I put on the thumbnail was Mark Gibbons' Morathi art, as Mark said to me directly when we were discussing it. He's like, "That's Morathi in her showgirl years because she's got feathers all around her."
Oh my good lord. Matthew, it's interesting the parallel between Sigmar and Malarian both losing their significant other in order to lead.
Male writers.
They both become a savior of the species. Yeah, I think it's a dude trope. I'm gonna be honest.
Oh, it's such a dude writer trope.
Were their wives fringed?
On a smaller side in this one, I had to turn aside 2 pieces of work that basically had this story pop up from 2 independent people for 2 other fucking characters, where they were basically saying yes, and they'd be motivated by significant other. Landed this way. Fuck that. Fridging women just to give motivation to men is a shit story unless it's a good one. And that doesn't mean it's such a weak use of women to provide men with motivation. It can be done well. I won't deny that, but most often it just isn't.
Yep.
I don't think the Malekith story is necessarily that a clean example of that, though. I think there's a lot more going on there than simply woman dies, man becomes, powerful because of. There is so much more involved with that one. It's not a story that I call out for as necessarily a bad fridging example, if you know the term fridging, but there are several examples of fridging in Warhammer.
Yep, it's a classic. Cole Patterson, Sotek, what are you talking about? I'm an American and I know how to say
Ennui.
Ennui. Perhaps this affliction is due to you Texas Chaos Barbarians. Well,
you
first
Chaos
of all,
Barbarian Texan.
I mean, probably. I'm not gonna deny that. I would very much probably see that. That's a
Move on
southern
swiftly.
thing.
It never happened.
Magla drop 44. Something I've wondered is that if Anarian was possessed by Cain/Ashurin, on some level, one or both can claim to be his true father and demigod.
Yes.
Yes.
So Azurin has manifested as an avatar, has made Inarian an avatar, given portion of his power into a mortal. I mean, and that inevitably could be a source of power for Malekith.
And here's the thing. So think of it this way. Be'lakor 100% canonically, beyond the shadow of a doubt, just by possessing someone, can make a child.
Yes.
Archaon.
Yep.
So if that can happen, then Malekith.
If we go with the other stories, all of the Everchosen.
Yeah. Yes. All the Everchosen. Yeah. And
all the Everchosen are his children.
Then I would say it's kind of irrefutable that Malekith is quite literally the child of the gods.
Or at least a part of the gods. Exactly. He has divinity within him. And that's one of the reasons why the earlier allusion to making sense of it and saying that he's Cain's avatar makes sense. He has more power than the average elf. He lives eternally. He just keeps going. Why? And we have reasons for this. The most obvious one being because his dad was a godlike. That's gonna do, and his mother was Morathi, who almost certainly, if we go with the end times nonsense, was pretty much an avatar as well, and had been from the beginning. Okay, so he's basically the children of gods. Malarian is special, and Morathi's excuse for this was that's because he's the avatar of Cain. It's not. It's because he's a fucking demigod.
Mm-hmm. Necromancer Cobalt, thoughts on Malarian's betrayal of Snorri by starting the War of the Beard, being a plot by Morathi, another way of breaking Malarian's weaknesses. So arguably it is honestly like a genuine stroke of genius by Malekith, the way he manipulates the elves and the dwarfs. If we talk a lot about it, if you go watch our Grumbridle stream, we talk a lot about this. But was Morathi potentially partially involved in like pitching ideas? Yeah, probably.
Yeah, so I have a sort of opinion on this, which is I don't want to take away the agency of Malekith by putting everything in Morathi's hands. I don't mind Malekith being shaped by Morathi. That makes sense.
Yeah, and she is one of his advisors. Like, he does talk to her about
these decisions. He is the one who decides what's going to happen. Now, is she on the outside very much trying to manipulate this? Yes, but is she the one that is responsible for this? The answer is no. It is Malarian. He is the one who has to live and die by his decisions.
Yeah, and I would say that only he could have pulled it off because of his intimate knowledge of the dwarfs, as well. Brock, would Morathi see Ariel as another unpredictable?
Probably not, but maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
I mean, the spirits. It's hard to say. Lauren is crazy, man.
Yeah, and Ariel, like where Ariel is, would make it hard, and what Ariel is could potentially make it hard. But we don't know.
I think actually I'd take this from a different idea, Brock. And the answer is, what does the lore say happened? And then the answer is, Morathi predict that. So the answer is, she's not unpredictable. She did her best, Morathi did, to get Ariel into the position that she wanted. Was it dangerous? Yes. Did she get the outcome she wanted? Almost. So I would suggest she's not unpredictable, but it's exceedingly dangerous dealing with that level of entity.
Yeah, and something that might actually be really worth saying real quick is that the prophecies in Warhammer are not like super clear obvious. It's not like you like are looking into the future and you see like a crystal clear 420p HD remake of what's going to happen. They literally when it talks about Morathi in the Tower of Grod, it talks about how she literally sees like this great splitting
paths,
eternally branching splitting patterns that as you get closer to the event, it gets more and more and more and more and more narrow.
Yeah, I think of it like a tree. Okay, so you've got right in front of you, if you start at the base of a tree, you've got the trunk, and you can see that trunk and what's going to happen on it. As the trunk goes up, it splits, and each time as it splits into its various branches, we have different potential futures coming up. And you, as the person walking up that trunk, as in Morathi is sitting there looking at all potential futures as a tree, she goes up that trunk, and then a choice is made, which goes in one of two directions, going down one of them. Both of those, when you're looking into the future, can happen. Both of them. The future is not certain in the Warhammer world. That's not how it works. You reach that path, you split, and her job is to say, right, I want it to go this way at the split. So she imposes her will at the split to ensure that the path that she wants to reach at the end is the outcome. If you want to see this used to great effect, go check Dune, The Golden Path. The Golden Path is manipulated by the Atreides as the pure path through the potential futures that exist. If you watch the movie, you'll see that a whole bunch of things that Paul Atreides sees never happen because he's seeing potential futures that could have occurred, where he ends up being best friends with Jamal, the one that he kills. But he kills him instead because he chooses a different path to the future. Or at least it's less choice and more. It just happened that way for him.
Yeah.
He does much more choice later. Morathi's the same. She can see all of the potentials and she then goes, how am I going to pick my way through these and get to an end that is the one that I want? And the big problem with Chaos is all of the ends for Morathi looked like Chaos was going to win. So she had to do something to try and break that.
Yeah. So like in all of these situations, it's not that Morathi's like, oh, I'm so clever. I've got myself in this position. I know I'm going to win. Like she's weighed her options as good in her favor as she could, but she can't die in any of them.
Yeah. I mean, if we imagine the Ariel one, the chance of her surviving a siege is really low. But she relied upon their characters and she relied upon seeing this entire tree of events of the attack of the Wood Elves. As she starts on the main trunk, she looks at it and almost all of the branches end with her dead. But there's one over there where her and Ariel become lovers. And she goes, that's the one I want. And she tries to manipulate events to reach the one where she becomes lovers with Ariel.
Hendrik, geez. I'm going to tell you in advance. I'm so sorry. We're not going to have time for this. What are
I'm going to keep it super simple. I'm going to answer it very simple. An elven avatar is a possessed elf by a god. That's it.
Yeah.
How much is their old personality? All of it. How much is the god's personality? Almost none. What is the low end and high end of an avatar? That's as much as the writer wishes to drop it in. Orion and Ariel betray this, though. They are different.
Yeah, and one day we'll do a dedicated stream on the concept.
Because this is a big one, Hendrik. We can't dive into this one.
Darius, hi guys. With any of these people, who would manipulate who, if Morathi met them, Doctor Doom, Lex Luthor, the Joker, Darkseid. The only one of
I mean,
those
she's so much older than all of them.
Yeah, Darkseid would probably be the only, like, Darkseid's like a god from an alternate dimension, so it's kind of like dealing with a chaos god. So that one would be, I think, kind of a wash. Doctor Doom depends a lot on who's writing him, but Lex Luthor and I think Joker would be absolutely outclassed.
Ultimately, yes. I mean, all she needs to do is go, peace out, and just wait for them to die of old age.
Darkseid's really the only realistic contender on here.
Yeah, exactly. The elves work differently to everybody else.
Yeah, to be fair, though, in defense of comics, Marvel and DC comic books are so much more powerful than anything Warhammer has ever conceived of that it's not even funny. Darius, she's like Rhea Ripley, the girlfriend / wife stealer.
Yes. She is. I mean, and it's not just girlfriend. She's the anyone stealer, because as we noted earlier, the Elven Prince fell to her side to start off the whole plan to get Malekith's wife killed. Anyone is fair game to Morathi.
Suspension, Morgar, I, the Godslayer Morathi, I dropped the S. I mean, why kill when you can manipulate? Yeah, the Godslayer.
Okay, so my
is Morathi a power bottom?
She's both.
I think Morathi is what she needs to be to turn the situation to her advantage.
And I don't think it's necessarily a joke question, because it's definitely a question that's worth it. Because at heart, Morathi will do whatever is required. She'll go to jail. She will subject herself to the demons. She will work with her enemies. She will do anything to get what she wants, because ultimately she can see an outcome that no one else can see, but only if certain things happen. And sometimes that means that she has to go through abject hell to reach the outcome that she wants at the end, which is whatever it might be, that goal that she's chasing. That, again, that tree of different potential possibilities for the future. And a lot of those will leave her going, the only way I can get to that is if I have an arm cut off, or
we're about to have one of those moments come up here in just a second. Skylar Martin, Morathi / Aerial Talk Security light novel win. I'd buy it.
Amen.
Dash, I guess. First
Dash, nice to see you.
Thanks so much for coming by. Lovely having you join us.
Super appreciated.
Stellar Rising. Hash it. Any place for shorts. Yeah, soon. Stay tuned.
Always. I've done a few streams with the good old Charves. Go check them out.
Yeah, Minkelsar Nagrund and Astrogoth. Both great streams. All right, so pushing onwards of the next really big things that we have come up with Morathi is that basically she kind of fades.
Can I interrupt this one? Sorry, because that is a good one. I wish I'd gone with that as my metaphor. Morathi is just doing a choose your own adventure book where she can see all the outcome paths and just going through the route she wants. Yes, but it's not a book that's got fixed words in it. So it means that she goes to each page and she has to fight those fights and do those deeds, and it might go wrong. Just because you know the outcome you could have doesn't mean that you do it perfectly when you give it a go. So it's a little bit like this, but a choose your own adventure book is, I do think, a better option, Mornington. So good call. Sorry for interrupting there.
No, you're all good. So Morathi kind of fades to the background. Malekith sort of surges to the front for a lot of the story for the next few hundred years, until we basically get to what is often kind of considered like the modern era. Which is where Morathi steps back forward for the big invasion of the Great War Against Chaos. And Morathi does something incredible here, which is that, during the Great War Against Chaos, Malekith starts building up for a big invasion because he could tell magic is rising in the world. There's a storm of chaos coming. There's a storm of magic coming. He's going to be able to use it to his advantage. But a lot of his advisors go, boss, there's like a giant fucking chaos horde coming towards us. We're not going to have a home if we go the old one. And Morathi goes, I got this. And funny enough, she does the same thing in the Storm of Chaos alternate timeline, which tells a much more detailed version of the story, which is super cool. So I'm just going to tell you that one, because she basically does the same thing.
No, let's leave that for Storm of Chaos one.
Oh, right. So okay, fine. So okay, So the original version is so the Great War Against Chaos. Morathi goes and intercepts this giant horde of chaos.
Yes,
and she basically just bargains with them. Because diplomats. So she goes out there with a force, and they negotiate with the Chaos Horde to basically say, hey, we will provide you with the ability to get to Ulthuan. We will pick you up on our Black Arcs, and we will join forces with you, and you will be our allies, and we'll go there and we will destroy Ulthuan together. Your gods want it, because the Chaos Gods very much do, because that would unbind the Vortex, and the Dark Elves want it for their own ends to manipulate these guys and probably betray them at the opportune moment.
And kill the Chaos Gods.
Yeah. So,
Yay.
so they come to a mutual agreement, and the force that invades Ulthuan during the Great War, which a lot of people don't know this, interestingly enough, is not just a Dark Elf horde. It is not only a colossal Dark Elf horde, but it is an entire Chaos horde. Not just an army, a full fucking horde that just doesn't happen to have the Everchosen at the front of it. Instead, it's almost worse because it's led by the fucking Witch King and Morathi.
Yeah, it is worse. And the great lie of the Great War against Chaos is that it happened in Kislev. It didn't. It happened across the north, and the Dark Elves helped. Because their goal was, again, to take Ulthuan, to bring down the Vortex. The crazy, why would anyone bring down the Vortex? It will shake the world and ruin everything. Because they honestly believe that that will give them the outcome that they want. It's not the Malekith going all stroppy, I'm throwing out all my toys from my pram because fuck you guys if I can't have Ulthuan. No one can. He genuinely believes, like his father did before him, that the Vortex is a mistake.
Yeah, so at this point, we get the Great War. Morathi isn't, like, she's active, but Malekith and his armies, she's
generally mentioned as, she led this bit, went over here, there was a fight, and that's about it. They don't really go into any good detail as to what was going down.
This is where 8th edition made a choice, and this was to build up for a planned end times plot. That is contentious, we'll say. Which is that the Battle of Finneval Plain happens, and in the original version, Morathi is never said to be there. So 8th edition very bluntly says she's not there. She's many leagues distant, and is doing other stuff, but she's watching it through scrying. And she sees this, big battle, and of course, there's the really famous build up to the Battle of Finneval Plain, where Malekith sends forth Urian Poisonblade, his great champion, who says, somebody duel me because Warhammer, it's cool. Let's have a 1v1 fight before the big fight, even though there's no point to it other than just for kicks, I guess. But
it was a choice.
Yeah, Urian Poisonblade massacres a lot of really good, powerful elves, and then he fights Tyrion. Now, Urian Poisonblade is significantly older than Tyrion and has been personally trained by like Malekith and a bunch of other guys, and he's like an assassin on cocaine combined with being like a super badass dreadlord mess. Funny enough, if you ever want a fun time, if you go and look into the history of like what exactly Urian Poisonblade is supposed to look like / be represented as, whether he's supposed to be an assassin or more like a traditional dark elf like master in heavy armor, there are very different versions of him across the years. But in any event, so he fights Tyrion, and exactly that. And I shit you not. Basically, what happens is that Tyrion walks up to fight him, and Morathi goes, "Oh, who's this guy? That guy looks like my husband.
Fuck.
That guy looks exactly like my husband." Which, for reference, in a lot of the older editions, there was a lot of notes about that Tyrion. The High Elves believe that Tyrion is very much potentially an Aryan reborn. He looks a lot like an Aryan. He wears an Aryan's armor. Very similar physique. And of course, there is the implied aspect that he might have some of the darker aspects of an Aryan as well, but they try not to think about it.
Tyrion is this tall, blonde, beautiful prince, over 7 foot of elven muscle and might, where Teclis is this sickly, weak, broken sorcerer that is his twin, with dark hair that by elven standards looks lank, and his skin looks really mottled and grey by elven standards. By human standards, he looks physically fine.
He's a little skinnier, I guess. But
I suppose he's a bit skinnier, but by elven standards, they look at Teclis and they go, maybe he should have been killed and never allowed to live, because that was his story growing up.
So in every version of the story except for this one, which is important, Tyrion Urian fight, and Tyrion almost kind of through divine luck manages to kill Urian at like the last, like he basically slips and it causes Urian to miss, and then he stabs him in the heart. So in the Dark Elf book, instead of it just being that Tyrion kind of just got lucky,
No. But yes, there's a story there.
Yeah, depending on who you ask. So according to this version of the story, Uriel, is it Uriel or Urian? Now I'm having a brain fart. Urian. Urian doesn't actually miss, according to the Dark Elf 8th edition book.
Mm-hmm.
Instead, he is about to kill Tyrion, and Morathi, in a moment of, it says, panic for the first time in centuries, unleashes a massive amount of magic just due to the sheer distance involved, and basically just moves Urian's sword. She makes him miss.
Yep.
And that creates the opening where Tyrion kills him.
Yeah, Tyrion would have died.
Which is and this sets off a storyline where Morathi, to put it very bluntly, believes that Tyrion is an Aryan returned, and she basically falls in love with him even though she doesn't know him at all. Just because of what he looks like.
It's a story.
I
think it's worth just dwelling on this just for an extra second.
Oh, yeah, sure.
It makes
there's
no
a weirder
sense.
part about that come up.
Okay, because I know it's about to get worse. This makes no sense. Because she's not an idiot. You don't fall in love with someone who's got the face of an old lover, because that's something that you're going to encounter more than once in a very, very long life. Because in the end, we all have similar casts to each other in one fashion or another. There are various people who turn up again and again. That's why we have all those vampire stories with, oh, you look like my lost love. You're the third person that I thought looked like my lost love, but whatever. It's why whenever you see somebody in their old photographs from like 3 or 4 generations back, you go, oh, gosh, you really look like your great granddad, don't you? It's because you do. You carry the same genetics, as does Tyrion. He carries the genetics of his ultimate grandfather. It's no great surprise he looks like him. Someone's going to look like him down through the generations. It's not a biggie, but it's turned into this extraordinary biggie, which means that when we're looking at it from the outside, we kind of need a better justification. And there is an obvious and clear one. He could be an Aryan reborn. Now, I don't mean literally reborn. I mean, he could be what she's looking for. The great killer of all chaos. This is what she needs. And it's not love. It's more need. It's not like it was never love to begin with. She fell in love with an Aryan. Along comes Tyrion. And we don't have loads of stories of her being chasing after Tyrion all the time in Age of Sigmar because she's an Aryan.
Yeah, they immediately dropped this plot in AOS, by the way.
Yeah, because he's not an Aryan. It's stupid, really stupid. But if we just look at it and take the word love and say, and she claims to, suddenly it all makes complete sense, because she needs someone who is an Aryan to destroy the world.
Yeah, and
chaos.
What we're about to talk about, there is a way to very easily salvage it, which is just remove the love part. Yeah. Because it's about to get really stupid. So Malekith, as we all know, gets zapped by Teclis during the climax of the Battle of Finneville Plain, and he throws himself into the realm of chaos, and a lot of people are not sure if he's dead or not, but he poofs. And Morathi has this really, really big thing where she's not 100% sure if he's dead or not. So she goes on this big ritual thing because she solidifies Nagaroth, because obviously with the Witch King dead, believed dead, there are potential problems. So she organizes a situation coordinating with Corin Darkhand to basically get the Black Council under control, so that instead of them all fighting to be Witch King, basically Morathi does a bunch of big rituals that involves her actually killing a fucking Slann. That's a whole story when she's going down doing the Slann shit, and a Slann's brought before her. Sacrifice to Cain. Yeah, so we get basically a callback to the Storm of Chaos, but in 8th edition, where the Dark Elves invade Lustria. They bring a bunch of artifacts back, including a drugged Slann that gets lobotomized by a Assassin's Blade. Very cool story. And she kills the Slann, sacrifices them, and that's enough of a ritual that she learns for sure that Malekith is alive and he will return at some point. And with that knowledge, she gets the Black Council under control, and basically they come under the situation of, we're just waiting for him to come back. so no one's allowed to be Phoenix King. And Corin Darkhand has one of the coolest fucking story beats and kills a lot of the Black Council, and it's very fucking cool. But we're here for Morathi. So then we get something that, once again, if you were to remove the love part, is interesting, but because it has the love part, is stupid, which is known as the Ritual of Awakening. So this is a storyline where 76 years after the Battle of Fenneval Plain, so 76 years roughly after the end of the Great War against Chaos, Morathi basically pulls off
about
a scheme.
2380, just so we have our date.
Yeah, so Morathi pulls off a scheme where, I shit you not, she kidnaps Tyrion, whisks him away to the Blighted Isle where the Altar of Cain is, and she straps him down before the Altar of Cain and does a big ritual that is supposedly supposed to awaken like an Aryan spirit in him and like bring an Aryan to the forefront. But like evolve.
Which means she's not in love with Tyrion. She wants an Aryan. It's pretty fucking clear, right?
Yeah. Which that's all the writer. All the writer had to do would just be like, she's trying to make, especially because Malekith isn't around and he failed. To put it bluntly, Malekith failed, and Morathi is looking for another cat's paw, and she has one here. But the writer is like, it's because she misses her husband so much and she loves him so much. And it's like, does she though? But anyway, so she
vacillates. It's Tyrion. It's an Aryan. I mean, the whole Anarian thing, I'm more than happy with that. But her character has so clearly defined over the course of multiple centuries to hover immediately, just fall in love with Tyrion in such a fashion, and then erase Tyrion and try to replace Tyrion with an Aryan. It doesn't make sense until you just go, no, it's an Aryan. She needs an Aryan. It's an Aryan.
And the sad thing is, this little story could have been slightly changed to be something really fucking cool, which is that her ritual gets interrupted because Cron Hellebrand purposely fucks it up because Cron Hellebrand's hilarious. But because Teclis and the High Elves like show up to save Tyrion. She starts the ritual, and what this could have very simply be is that she's channeling the fury and the power of Cain, and which is basically what Anarian had, into him. And this could be used as a very simple justification for how Tyrion goes from being, quite frankly, little baby elf to being one of the most terrifying fucking elves on the planet.
So I love this little story for its implications, if not necessarily its execution. And the implications is that Morathi succeeds. And she effectively brings an Aryan spirit, or what that spirit meant, into reality. Because Tyrion, he was already a well-trained monster, becomes horrifyingly powerful, and much like Morathi, terrifyingly arrogant. I have no issues at all with Morathi having flaws. Like, she fell in love because she fell in love. But that's not really her big flaw. Her big flaw is arrogance, really. I mean, if you want to just pull it down, she thinks she's right and everyone else is wrong. Everyone else is a tool for her to use. And that's ultimately where she should be falling down, so to speak. And here is a fine example of that. I think she succeeded.
Yeah, if the end times had been written well, this would have been one of the big, awesome seed moments of setting up Tyrion's fall as the Avatar of Cain.
Yes.
But anyway, so, and literally there's a super funny line in the last paragraph where it's like Tyrion is actually about to kill her, because since Cron Hellebrand's agent lets him go, he starts killing everybody around him. And he's about to kill her, and then she kisses him and he's like, oh, and then she runs away. It's really funny.
Oh man. You could.
But in any event, also a slight correction, the plunder in the jungle happens after the Ritual of Cain, but it doesn't really matter for this sake. So that's where she finds out, okay, Malekith for sure is coming back. Yes. So then more shenanigans,
because she does the whole thing with Tyrion first, and then she goes off and does a bunch of other stuff, finds out Malekith's coming back, and is like, oh, thank fuck.
And makes her prep for Malekith's return.
Makes her prep for that. So
Malekith, like she saw, comes home. And to say that Malekith is not in the best shape, go check out our Malekith streams, is a bit of an understatement. He's a little fucked up, because the Realm of Chaos is hard on anybody, especially on an elf when you have Nakari, the arch tempter, literally chasing you the entire time. And she takes Malekith back to his fortress in Nakaron. She nurses him back to health. And oh boy, is Malekith super fucking scary.
Fucked.
From the, like, yeah, and
But amazing.
he is like max level power now. So Morathi, for the most part, kind of fades in the back, and isn't crazy important to a lot of what happens, kind of leading up to the end times. And then we get to the end times where
let's do a couple of super chats for whatever remains. And
then we'll go from, man, this has been such a cool examination of this character, to fuck for the rest of the stream.
Here she goes.
We actually
good way to
just
end
have
the
the one.
stream.
Ricky Chapman, if Morathi is one of the first elves, did she learn magic from the Slann?
Possibly. Yeah, I mean, if we were building the character from scratch with everything we know, we'd probably say yes. Probably. She was one of those young infant elves who learned at the feet of the Slann mage priests. And I think that makes for a really cool image of a young, perfect little Morathi, a little elven kid, and those slave priests, and maybe the one that she eventually kills much, much later is the one that taught her.
Well, listen to this.
The ultimate betrayals.
Age of Sigmar supports this.
Oh, marvelous.
Because there is a scene in Broken Realms where Morathi is, to put it very bluntly, Lord Croak is fighting a god. And Morathi shows up, and Morathi, being the fucking genuine badass she is the only one there who's powerful enough to perceive that Lord Croak is there. Because Lord Croak is being Lord Croak, and he's fucking, he's doing Lord Croak shit. And she recognizes him, and they actually have a conversation. And Lord Croak is credited in Warhammer Fantasy Battles as the Slann who taught the elves how to use magic.
Yes. Yeah, there's something great in that. And I think that's definitely, I think that's a thing. I in my head canon, it's a thing. A lot of this stream, though, is head canon because it has to be to make sense of it all.
Yeah. But there's something there. There's something there that can be worked with. JRR, to obtain Morathi affection, would not Tyrion have to do something that surprised her? Her turn on was not Anarian's body. She's the manipulator. When it comes to Tyrion, she's being manipulated.
I think for the affection, yes, probably. Which is one of the reasons why I think affection is misplaced. Doesn't mean she wouldn't claim it was affection, because ultimately she'll say and do whatever is required to get what she wants, including apparently kissing someone just to save her own life. But I think manipulator does indeed make more sense.
Yeah, I think if you wanted to go this route, the argument that you could make is that she surprised herself when she saved him from Urian. Like, she didn't think about it. She just did it as kind of an impulse.
I don't mind that. I think there's something in that, particularly if it fucks up her plan. How about, this is an interesting one. We see that she can see the future. She knows what all the various branches say. And she saw that Ulthuan was going to fall, but she broke it by killing Urian. Okay, because just because you know what the future can be doesn't mean that you're going to do it. You fuck up. Things go wrong. And she made a mistake. And she made a mistake because she honestly, for a moment, went, fuck, it's an Aryan. And just made a mistake. That's beautiful, I think,
I would love that, because
story.
That would actually reflect the AOS story, too, where when Morathi is ascending to godhood, she goes into Slaaneish's guts and she basically consumes all the Phoenix Kings. But when she gets to an Aryan and she sees him, she hesitates.
Yeah.
And in that, she fucks up, because when she hesitates, an Aryan stabs her and it's really bad. So the idea that she sees an Aryan's face and a part of her brain goes, oh my God, an Aryan's about to die, and she can't help herself, she says him, that matches OG Morathi from what she did back in the day during the Cataclysm, and it matches future Morathi, where there is that part of her that's impulsive because she loved him that much. It's not that she loves Tyrion. That works really well.
I think her story is super clear. She loves an Aryan. She never expected to love anyone. And an Aryan is super important to her. And seeing him face to face, his face, for the first time after what by that point is millennia, just tipped her to do something stupid. And she did. And she broke effectively the entirety of the Dark Elf invasion. Tyrion survives. He was supposed to die there. She on the tree that she saw, Tyrion just dies on that plane. And she was there to watch it all, to make sure it was going according to her plan. And then when she sees him, she's like, shit! And then she's like, shit.
I would love it because you could just see the internal monologue in slow motion of a part of her, not the rational part, but that truly elven emotional part that she thought she had suppressed at this point, being like, I could save him this time.
Yeah. Yeah.
I could save him this time. And she does.
And something that she almost certainly immediately regrets, particularly with then what's the outcome of that? The loss of Malekith.
I would love that because that would
so good.
Fuck with her. That would fuck with her so bad.
Okay, particularly, and then it makes sense of many of the choices she makes afterwards in an attempt to try and effectively make him into what she needs, because she just lost Malekith. And lost Malekith because of her choices, because she saved him. It works quite nicely.
I've never thought of this. I'm eating this up. This is fucking, because that would explain so much of like why her actions are so rash all of a sudden. Almost 10,000 years of planning just went down the fucking shitter, and she's having to scramble to try and get things back on some track.
Perfect. And as we all know, elves are emotional anyway. These things happen.
Yeah, that's because
love it.
That would introduce a consistent character flaw that is genuinely great, and it's uniquely elven.
Yeah,
awesome. Love that.
Brilliant.
This string, just say, and we're about to talk about the end times, but this actually in a way makes me like, well, now I can actually kind of
it's beginning to make a bit more sense now. I can almost make it work.
Necromancer Cobalt, the Tyrion love story is so much worse to me because it also feels like Morathi leaving her current love for a younger man. It's such a lame stereotype, which is why you should go with our version and ignore that version.
Yeah, so
Brock, at what point does Morathi's motivation change from saving her people and world to objectively something else? Thanks again for another great stream.
I would argue the point when she realizes the world's going to blow up, and the second she determines that it's definitely blowing up, she has to change her motivation from being kill chaos to become a god.
Survive.
It's the only motivation that makes sense. And if we go with the end time story as it stands, that is her motivation. And she pretty much says it to her son directly. Stop being such a whiny little dick. Become a god. That's what I'm going to do. And loosely, it can all make sense if we take a look at it as she saw an outcome where chaos could be brought to its knees, and she fucked it up by saving Tyrion. And that suddenly makes all of the cataclysmic choices that come afterwards suddenly look a lot stronger.
All right, so the end times.
We're going to dive into the end times.
We have 15 minutes to get through this garbage because it's.
Okay,
I'll be blunt. It's garbage. So Morathi is with all the Dark Elves. Malekith is doing his whole thing of killing the Phoenix King Finnebar in a bit of a weird plot. But Morathi basically is like, all right, we should invade. Like, I think Malekith's right. Time to invade Ulthuan. This is the end times. She knows it's the end times.
Yeah.
Like she knows it as better than pretty much anybody else. And so what she does is she says, all right, we're gonna invade. Bye, and she vanishes. And nobody knows where she went. Not even Malekith knows where she went. And basically, she does a not very good, I'm going to be honest, a really bad disguise as a sorceress among the Dark Elves, and basically joins up with Malekith's invasion, where she is manipulating Malus Darkblade and fucks up Malus Darkblade's story by making like Zarkan able to like burst out of him, and Malus got a really shit story as well. But Morathi kind of like, she manipulates him, and she's basically just trying to get close to Tyrion. She is obsessed with Tyrion. That's all she cares about. The whole end time
story is, I'm obsessed with Tyrion.
That's all it is.
It's pretty much her end time story.
She is obsessed.
Unhealthily obsessed.
Yeah, and it basically builds up to she keeps manipulating matters until she's able to basically go to Tyrion and reveal to him that, hey, Teclis betrayed you and he got your daughter killed. Everyone's against you and you should go crazy. And Tyrion's like, okay, yeah, fine. And
Tyrion with that.
Yeah, and Tyrion goes ape shit. And as he as he becomes the avatar of Cain in the full method, and he draws the Widowmaker, she basically is just the person that keeps pushing him to draw the Widowmaker, and he does. And after he does get he basically runs around, does some fighting, and she after he draws the Widowmaker, she becomes his consort.
Mhm.
And they are lovers.
Classic
And
Morathi.
yeah, she keeps manipulating him, and she fights on his side, and she basically deals with a couple of plots by, like, Hellebron tries to betray her, and Morathi beats her because Hellebron, God love her, she's not that good at plots. And like, we respect Hellebron in this house, but boy howdy does she have a pretty strong L record. And Morathi basically wins up until kind of the last second. Which is that, so all of the various avatars of the gods are being revealed. I believe Morathi is officially revealed as the avatar of
Hecate.
Hecate.
Hecate, yeah.
And Hellebron is the avatar of authority for some reason.
Me, that made no sense.
Yeah, which, and it's like, oh, they're having a spat because the sisters hate each other, which they do, to be fair, but it was kind of like just shoved in.
It was weak ass.
Yeah, so she basically just fights alongside Tyrion. When Tyrion is nearly killed by Emmerich, when he gets stabbed, she helps him heal a bit. And then in the big final battle, the Vortex is undone by Teclis, and Teclis is trying to do Vortex shenanigans while kind of controlling it, because Teclis's goal is to make all 8 incarnates elves. He wants all of the 8 incarnates to be elves, and he wants specific elves to be specific incarnates. So, like, he wanted Malekith to be the incarnate of fire. Because Ashura and stuff. But Morathi, who is kicking ass and chewing bubblegum relatively good up until this point, is doing fine until Tyrion gets killed. Because Tyrion gets shot in the heart by Elithnar. Hilariously, Elithnar was not aiming for Tyrion. He was actually aiming for Malekith. And Teclis just kind of used magic to move his arrow a little bit, and it hits Tyrion in the heart instead and kills him. And when Tyrion dies, Morathi fucking loses it. And she basically runs into the vortex, and she kills all of the wizards in the vortex. Which she has, funny enough, she actually has done that in the Sons of Illyrian storyline, which we didn't really have time to get into today, but it's not a super important story. But she kills all the other wizards of the vortex, and this causes it to completely destabilize. It snaps, and Teclis loses control of basically all of the winds, and they go off. Everything, yeah. And so most of the winds scatter and go to other people in the world. But yeah, good old. But Teclis is able to hold on to like 2 or 3 of them. And because the vortex breaks and all of that magic stuff, a rip in reality opens up where the literal hand of Slaanesh reaches through and starts groping around to just to find something and trying to force itself through. And Slaanesh is actually described pretty cool. Slaanesh is awful. It's like stretched flesh of screaming faces and gnashing mouths and tentacles. It's bad. And Morathi sees Slaanesh groping around and goes, oh, she basically sobers up, is the best way I could put it. It's like,
it's going to make you, isn't it?
Yeah, I should probably leave. And as she turns to leave, Kalidor Dragon Tamer is there because the ritual's over, and he grabs her, and Morathi freaks out, starts attacking him, and he says a very cheeky line that was not, which is, this is weird because this story once again shows why we on Lorebeards like delving into the deep lore and trying to discover the things that were not necessarily intended but were written. Which, if you watched our episode last time, we basically determined that Morathi is incredibly ancient. Incredibly. Like, could very realistically have been one of the first elves or was in one of the first generations. Kalidor is probably not. And Kalidor literally says something to her of the effects of, child, meet your end with dignity. And Morathi's like, oh, okay, I guess. And Slaanesh grabs both of them and pulls them into the, basically eats them. And the portal closes, and that's the end of Morathi.
Yeah. Child. Someone clearly hadn't read how old Morathi was. Child. Bloody hell. So, from all of this, what can we say? We can say that Morathi and Kalidor are eaten by Slaanesh. Not exactly the best way to end for anybody. And that is the end of the Morathi tale. The great Cirrus Not
yeah.
quite. The great seeress from the beginning of time saw an end that was awful, the cataclysm, and did everything in her power to stop it and created Inarian, but mistakenly fell in love with him during that process. That wasn't the plan.
That's a fair point, Lindsay. I mean, from his perception, maybe he is older than her by that point.
Sadly, though, at that point, Kalidor is marked as being in stasis from the...
That is true. He is specifically noted as
It's
stasis.
specifically written that he's in stasis from the original point when the spell was first cast. That spell has just held, being eternally chanted in spot from that point onwards.
I think for
Meaning
him,
that very little time has passed for him.
Yeah, I think time for him only moves when someone interrupts.
Yeah, totally. And even then, it's a weird timey-wimey sort of thing. But I think you could definitely make an argument for that. And if you took a Kalidor perspective piece, you could probably add infinite time if you wanted to do so, and it wouldn't be weird. But it was, a mess.
Yeah,
It's
you're not
timey-wimey.
timey-wimey. You're not wrong. Yeah, it's weird.
Yeah, it's complicated. And the descriptions of it are somewhat inconsistent. But we've got ourselves this character who at the very beginning of time saw the cataclysm, and she needed to do something about it because no one else believed her. The gods didn't believe her. The other elves didn't believe her. Presumably this land that we're teaching them, assuming that they hadn't already left, didn't believe her. And she tried everything to get them to come on side, and it didn't work. So she eventually started coming up with her own solutions for what she knew was coming. And a part of that was making pacts with other gods. One of those gods was Hecate. One of those gods was responsible for creating dark magic alongside her. And the pair of them, along with pacts made with presumably Slaanesh and others, prepared for a potential coming of chaos that was coming. And then it came. And she did whatever she did behind the scenes until eventually she was captured by Slaanesh and saved by an Aryan. And she turned an Aryan into the god thing that effectively he became. Because that wasn't an expected outcome for him. She loved it. She used him. And he died because she fell in love. Well, no, the other way around. She fell in love, then he died. And she was left with a world that hadn't been destroyed, yay, but was heading towards destruction. And with her seer vision, saw that there was really only one way that the world could avoid being destroyed by chaos entirely. And that was effectively to embrace the underworld god's plan, the plan to destroy chaos, in a very different way to how the High Elves wanted to do it. The Kadai very much wanted to go with the harmony route. Everyone working together and big, huge peace and love and elves being elves. And she saw it wouldn't work. It just wouldn't work. That doesn't mean that the High Elves were worse. The High Elves were wrong. It just means it wouldn't work. But if she went around a different route and made a bunch of bloodthirsty idiots, then there was an outcome where the elves went against the elves and brought down the vortex that they could defeat chaos. So she started a long-term plan, a really long-term plan, She supported the underworld gods. She effectively supported the Sundering. The Sundering came about. The first attempt to take down the vortex fails, but ultimately she never thought it was going to succeed in the first place. It was nothing about that. It was about what was coming. And in this version of what we're telling, this very long story can be tied up with one neat little bow, which is everything was going according to Morathi's plan. It just kind of was until Tyrion. And she sees Tyrion in the Battle of Finuval Plain, the battle that she knows is a linchpin battle for the overall plans that she has for destroying chaos. She has an entire chaos horde with them, almost certainly going to be betrayed by the Dark Elves because they're Dark Elves. It's what they do. The Dark Elves are going to take Ulthuan. They're going to betray chaos. They're going to bring down the vortex. Everything is going according to plan. And she sees him and she goes, holy shit, maybe I was wrong. Holy shit, it's... And she saves, whatever her internal thinking was, she saves Tyrion. And her entire plan, the cause and effect tree from the beginning of time right through to ultimately what she believes will be the destruction of the Chaos Gods or stopping the Chaos Gods. It doesn't matter what the outcome is, but her successful outcome where the elves survive is undone. because Tyrion survives. And Malekith is gone. And everything has gone wrong. And then she goes into freak out mode. This freak out mode ends with ultimately the end times. In the end times version, she's obsessed with Tyrion, and we can just turn that into, fitting the story that we built so far, an obsession with effectively building herself another Anarian to hopefully hold off and create another event that gives her time.
Yeah, because at that point, if she sees what is to come, then they need the Avatar of Cain. They fucking
absolutely
need him.
And it's worth noting that with this, we have got ourselves a version of Morathi that is pretty clear. She's a seeress who makes deals with gods at the beginning of time to try and stop the cataclysm. It fails. Azurin makes the first avatar, Inarian. Hecate follows almost immediately afterwards with Morathi. And she is an equal with Inarian in a way that no one else could be. From the beginning right through, she is, much like he is, an avatar of a god. They have a child, Malekith, who is the children of avatars and has power beyond anybody's expectation. And she's loving what he could potentially be. We have ourselves a clean story for Morathi. The great manipulator forced into that position because no one believed her. An avatar of a god who has made deals with all of the gods. She's made deals with Authority. She's made deals with Slaanesh. She's made deals with Cain. She had bloody married Cain. She is an extraordinary character. And she is the one that frames the cataclysm. That frames the failure of the cataclysm from their perspective and breaks the elves for a future where hopefully the world can exist. And ultimately, because of her own, let's say, her own classic flaw, if you will, that fatal flaw hits. And because of Morathi, the world not only could have been saved, but actually comes to an end.
You know, something I actually really love is a twist on a lot of stories in a very Warhammer way of that. If we, I think, could argue that her original plan would have succeeded, would have saved the world in some way, shape, or form, that love doomed the world.
And that's so Warhammer. Because Warhammer, I remember having a discussion with Graham Davis ages ago, which is Warhammer is all about subverting standard expectations for storytelling. It's what they wanted to try and do right at the very beginning. And Graham Davis is one of the seminal initial creators of the roleplay game, which was all about telling stories within the Warhammer world, not just having battles. It's about telling stories. And Warhammer was always about taking the standard and subverting it. Much like, and I'm going to do it, Michael Moorcock did with his fantasy. Elric of Melniboné was created to be a subversion of Conan. Conan, the big muscular hero who was the hero who slept with all the women. He was an emaciated sorcerer who was albino and couldn't do anything without herbs or magic. He basically techless. And he is an evil character. He's a dark elf by standards. He's not a hero. He's the opposite, but he ultimately is supposed to be there to try and save the world. And he destroys it. Because that's what needed to be done. The world was so broken. That's what Elric does. He subverts stories all the way through. And Michael Moorcock was subverting all of the standard fantasy tropes because he thought they were lazy and he thought the good guys always winning was silly. He was living in a post-Empire world of England at the time. And trust me, not good stories coming out of that.
We've had Tolkien and Moorcock in a room together.
Yeah, well, there's a rather famous essay about that from Michael Moorcock, which is hated roundly by Tolkien fans.
That's very funny.
But Warhammer was taking those British sensibilities and attempting to do the same thing, subvert standard stories. Love conquers all is the standard trope. I love the idea that ultimately for Warhammer,
love dooms us all.
Love doomed them. And that's a classic piece of Warhammer storytelling. I really quite like it.
Yep. All right. We're going to wrap up with super chats and then some little outro notes. But
yeah, we're done. That was fun.
Up in a much cooler. That was the first stream was like
the end times bit to be the bit that made me go, actually, it wasn't so bad.
Yeah. The first one was like, okay, this is fun and good stuff. And this one, like, man, I think that last like 30 minutes, I was like, holy shit, that's great. That's why I love Lorebeards, man.
Yeah,
Lorebeards
is best.
All right, Amnes and Fire. Maybe Morathi didn't see herself there on the plane when she accidentally saved Tyrion's life. Her vision was ruined by her own presence there. I mean, she wasn't.
But she wasn't
there.
strictly there. She was watching, and I think that we have a very clean reason for why she was watching. She can't influence it directly, but she's hoping everything that's been set up for it gives her the end she wants, and the end she wants ultimately is her son wins. But because of her impact upon it, her son lost.
Yeah, because if Tyrion had died, there is no way the Hyles would have won.
No, they were.
Teclis would have been like. It would have been bad. And without Teclis being focused, Malekith would have beat him in the magic duel. And if Malekith killed Teclis, they were super boned. Yeah. Necromancer Cobalt. Morathi is the greatest dark sorceress and the greatest of manipulators, but fell to the same thing as many Warhammer heroes did, wearing the magical end times dunce cap. It was going around a
You're
bit.
not wrong, Necromancer Cobalt. I strongly believe and still strongly claim that the end times could be reclaimed with all the events that happened still happening, but happening for really cool reasons and adding so much more to it, because what the fuck happened over in the East? Oh, man.
Yeah, especially, I mean, obviously we don't have time for it. And one day we will sit down and have a discussion about a lot of the fantasy characters and their AOS storylines. But Morathi's AOS storyline is gold. Like, it is a great story that fixes a lot. Because if she was truly in love with Tyrion, she would have been madly in love with him in AOS. And she's not at all in the slightest. Which fixes a lot of those.
Even the Leia section, I can fix it literally with a single sentence. Said Ladriel.
Yeah, that's honestly what a lot of it boils down to.
Said Ladriel.
Yeah.
Done.
She claims.
Yeah.
All right.
It fixes almost everything.
Morathi, with her Hag Queen training, physically overpowered by Caldor the Ghostly Mage. Come on. I will say.
I kind of agree.
Yeah, I do agree with you. I will say in Caldor's defense, by that point, she was pretty exhausted. I can fix her. I can fix the storyline. Yeah.
Oh, nice one, bro.
That do be a lot of what we do here. Fixing all of our beloved heroes and heroines. Brock 6000. This stream makes one an Ariel one now. It should.
There's a reason we keep on putting Ariel on the vote, just because she's fucking amazing.
Hopefully, you should want an Ariel one. We haven't done Tyrion yet.
We haven't done Tyrion yet.
We've talked a lot about him in the Alario stream.
Either.
Yeah, no, the twins. The twins are due at some point.
It's been years. How can we not have done those seminal characters?
I don't know. Lauren Quizzer, how does Morathi or any seer deal with Zinch, Mr. Architect of Fate, fucking up Destiny? I could see that
he's not fucking up Destiny. The world's going to come to an end, and it did. He got what he wanted.
Yeah,
magic flooded the world, and the world died. I would suggest, Lord Inquisitor, that the problem is Zinch. Because Zinch fucked up with the world and brought it to an end, and she's been fighting against the inevitability of Zinch pretty much from the beginning. So how do they deal with Zinch is the big question. How do you deal with the inevitable end of the world?
Yeah, that's the ultimate thing with Zinch is a lot of people, I think, get Zinch mixed up because they think that Zinch is changing what's going to happen to make it what he wants, when in reality he's already won. He's already changed everything to make it where he gets what he wants. Every other seer in the world is trying to change what is predetermined to happen. Yeah, and they lost.
The seers may be playing 4D chess, but he's already won with his 90. Yeah, he made the game. Exactly, and all the rules. So they're all trying to work within that framework. And the other gods that do have their own spheres of influence over areas like this, like Morai Heg, have similar issues. There's a lot we could discuss that in another thread, though, I think.
Yeah. Flavor, Andy, been wondering for a while since he keeps coming up. Do you have a good starting point for reading?
There isn't one. And by that I mean, Michael Moorcock has released so many books, all of which are tied into his great Eternal Champion series, that you can start almost anywhere. I started with the Eternal Champion, which turns out to be a great place to start. Most people start with the Elric books, and even they were written out of order. So the very first Elric book isn't the first book about Elric. You tend to find that there's lots of omnibuses out there you can find that are pretty decent. But I started with the Eternal Champion, so I kind of can't help but love that one. I then moved on to the Dorian Hawkmoon books. I didn't read Michael Moorcock's Elric books, the ones that most people cite, for like 5 years after I started reading Michael Moorcock. He has so many fucking books. They are, however, super short. Not one of his books are more than about 130, 140 pages, which is pretty fun.
And that...
No, it's not, because Necromancer Cobalt
slipped
sneaked in at the end.
Also, final off-topic note, congratulations to Throg for finally opening a book and remembering he's supposed to be smart in Total War. Yeah,
Has that happened?
Yes, they
Finally!
they redid all of his voice acting. It's so good. It's so good now. He sounds great.
That's good. Happy.
All right, but so quick little things. First of all, thank you all so much for joining us. Thank you all for all the support and everything. We always really appreciate it here on Lorebeards and stuff. We have a lot, and I mean a lot of very exciting things coming up pretty much immediately. There is about to be a lot of bonus episodes on Sunday and Wednesdays. To thank y'all in part for all of your generosity. I can go ahead and say that we're going to be doing one which is going to be kind of almost like a revisit episode where basically me and Andy are just going to open the floor to if there's ever anything we've talked about Lorebeards that you want us to talk a little more about, or you find contentious and want to argue with us, or any of that, we're going to do that. And we're also going to do a stream that I'm literally working on organizing right now, where everyone will be able to submit their own personal headcanons based on Lorebeard stuff or just your own favorite thing, and we'll just have a stream where we go through them and either talk about them seriously or just yes, please do watch the Rookery, which we'll talk about in a second. So a lot of exciting things come up. There will be a poll on Andy's channel here after the show.
Sure.
I don't even remember what we're doing next week if we planned for anything.
I have no recall at all, so possibly chat about it after the stream.
Yeah, so we'll figure that out.
I also don't know what we're doing next week.
But I did promise I would say this in this stream that unfortunately got delayed a few times. But for those of you that are Bretonnian fans, the lady has heard your pleas. And the vote that will be coming up is... Oh, Norse Dwarves. Yes, that is correct. Norse Dwarves.
I knew someone would know.
Good job, Palpatine. Thank you.
Which means it's going to be on your channel, the vote.
Fuck, is it?
Yeah, Norse Dwarves next week on yours.
Every single one of them is on my fucking... Anyway.
It's okay, I feel the same.
Yeah, so it's fine. Okay, so on my channel, there will be a vote. Norse Lost in Bretonia, you're welcome. It's pure Bretonia, baby. All the choices are Bretonian. There is no escape. The lady has heard your prayers. So look forward to that later today.
Happy birthday.
Yes, happy birthday as well to Source Lost in Bretonia. He's a great lad. But yeah. So oh my god, Ricky Chapman showed up. Right at the end. Chaos campaign.
What we got this time?
We attacked the Hag Queen's home. Our army was torn apart. A Dark Elf army with a Black Dragon flanked us, and we managed to get to Morathi, and she played everyone like a fiddle into attacking the donut.
I don't know what the donut part is, but the rest of it.
One.
Of course.
Though it is very funny to imagine she just has like a donut on the table and it's like, eat that donut.
Yes, miss.
Yes, ma'am. Anyway, so we hope you all had a good time. I did. Yeah, I don't necessarily think we'll do another two-parter for a hot minute, but hopefully we'll have another one that's come up soon because we want to try.
Morathi's worth it though.
Yeah, Morathi was absolutely worth it. Other than that, this Friday, actually, what day is it? It's Sunday. So there will be bonus episodes soon. Don't know exactly when, but keep an eye on socials.
Yeah, watch out in the socials, and also watch out on both Sotek and I's channels because you'll be seeing the notifications popping up for the different videos and when they're going live. Yeah,
this Wednesday, I believe we're having on a guest.
Very possibly, depending if we can organize that right.
Yeah.
But probably.
I'll leave it at that.
Stay tuned.
It'll be cool regardless.
Indeed.
And then Friday, LAWhammer is still cooking.
We're finally going to arrive at Talabheim, and yes, Friday, Talabheim.
Yeah, last episode was fantastic. I mean, all the episodes are fantastic, but last episode was quite fun.
I went to a few places.
Yeah, Saturday we've got Rookery because they're also back in season.
Yeah. And we're confirming the guest. They're currently determining that we had a confirmed guest, but it turns out they suddenly got busy. So we will confirm the guest in the next day or two. Our last one was Ross Watson. If you haven't watched that, that was last Friday, where we were discussing the development of Warhammer and Warhammer 40k and how those roleplay games came to life. If you'd like to know a little bit about the development of those games, go check out Rook Publications now, and you can see me and Ross having a good chinwag with Lindsay about the development of role-playing games.
Which you should, because Ross was also here with Andy last week, in case you missed that, where they had a chat about the realm of chaos and how it interacts between 40k and fantasy. It was a great.
Yeah, we had loads of fun with that one. It was good. Well, was awesome.
Yeah, so if you haven't,
praising Sotek.
Check it out. People always say such nice things when I'm not around. Anyway, so thank you all very much again for taking the time to come out and join.
Oh, well, we both pressed the same one.
Dash, late, but any thought about Solofet being the only Dark Pegasus with a name? It's an unfortunate aspect of Warhammer that the only time you tend to get named critters is when there's somebody's mount. Solofet, of course, being Morathi's Dark Pegasus, who you may notice we didn't really talk about because there's not really a story to Solofet. He's just kind of there.
Yeah, nothing more than a vehicle to get her about from one place to the next, and that's about it.
Yeah, looks cool.
Cool.
That's really all there is to say.
The sixth, I think, it's sixth ed art for that one's really quite nice.
Yeah, yes.
Where she's screaming down like that.
Yeah, the black and white art. Yeah, super nice.
Yeah, it's good. That's really cool. Good image.
Yeah, that's us for today.
Andy's
got anything else?
No, I don't. Other than thanks very much. That was a really nice stream. I hope we've changed your opinion on Morathi. Morathi is generally seen as
mine.
She's generally perceived as a badly written female character that is there to only provide a bad guy for people to kill, or a foil for the bad guy characters to go off and do something or be hateful towards. And she's given very little agency in most of the text. However, I hope that by the end of these two streams, if you look at it all, you can see that she's clearly not just an important Warhammer character, because she's awesome, but she's arguably almost one of the most important Warhammer characters that exist in the setting, and is responsible for so much that people just don't give her credit for, even though it is written in black and white, often in multiple books. And the main reason that most people don't give her credit for it is because not even the writers have fully realized what they've made her do.
Yeah, I cannot, honestly, I think this two-parter might be my favorite ever as an example of why I deeply appreciate being able to sit down with Andy as often as we do, because it makes Warhammer feel so much more like a living world. No offense to the writers, just because it wasn't. Warhammer has always suffered under the idea of you have a bunch of writers that are not working in concert with each other, so it's a bunch of scatter plot points. And Lorebeard has truly evolved into us being able to try and draw lines between those scatter points, and fuck, is it fun? It's just fun.
Big red lines everywhere.
No, yeah. Are we insane? Absolutely. Is any of this genuinely canon? No, but it could be, and that's what's fun.
Most of it kind of is, kind of.
Oh yeah. I mean, by the fuzziest. Yeah, like you gotta really squint, but you can make it work.
It's all in there. It's just you got to connect all the dots. Anyway, thanks very much, all. You absolutely rock. We will see you next time for more Lorebeardy goodness. Until then, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.